Good evening then, ladies and gentlemen across the world. Welcome aboard to WOR. This is the Legacy Division. It is myself, Jota, alongside James Head in what is a switch up in commentary duties for me tonight, leading the way. James, very quickly about to get going for what would be one-shot qualifying. Going to be a fun one.
It is going to be a fun one. It is Baku, it's Azerbaijan. It's going to be all hell for leather. It's going to be one-shot qualifying. It's going to be a sprint. It's going to be a feature race. There's going to be absolute chaos out on track. There's going to be 5 safety cars that I'm predicting tonight as well. It's going to be absolute mayhem.
Yeah, of course. We've got one-shot qualifying then leading the way initially before we get going here tonight. And then we'll be leading on into a sprint race. And apparently I've got a countdown at the top of my screen, which is actually very handy if that is the situation. 23 seconds to go. We have got this one-shot qualifying, as I said, that leads into the sprint race. After the sprint race, we'll take a very quick break, get ourselves reset for what will be a short qualifying and, of course, a 50% race around here in the streets of Baku. 10 seconds to go. Thank you very much for being alongside us for this event here tonight. It is going to be a little bit of a mixed bag, that is for certain. With 3 seconds to go, let's go racing. And then leading the way from the people at the front, it will actually be Boyalulu from the GT10 team. Well, they'll go a little bit of a scoot back, and let's go to Matteo at the moment. He's had an absolute cracker of a season so far, has Matteo, and I'm certainly looking forward to seeing what he is going to bring to the table here tonight for the Aston Martin team. But of course, it's all going to be about towards the front. Keep an eye on the likes of Joe Murphy, keep the likes out of Mubarak and Enzo. But Joe Murphy himself just now heading through the couple of corners here as we're going on board here, and for some reason all my onboard cameras are facing backwards, which is very peculiar to say the least. Heading through then into turn 3. Oh, he clad the wall ever so slightly. Mubarak leading the way though at the moment, but Joe Murphy taking the lead in this one-shot qualifying event as well, keeping that firm eye on the Red Bull of Enzo as well. TTM looking to try and maintain the form that they started developing in China. Fell off a little bit last weekend, and at the moment 2 and 3, not a bad effort so far. Kick Sauber though once again leading the way, and the Bunga Racing team very happy to have Joe Murphy, the fake Venezuelan, Jordanian, Irishman, whoever nationality he'll be taking on board, going through then at the top of the section, and then he'll head all the way down the back straight, and he'll want to keep it nice and tidy here. We're seeing a few people lose the rear ever so slightly after just maybe turning the car ever so slightly too hard around a corner that is perhaps a bit more softer. Going through here very close to the limits, wasn't he indeed, actually, as Mubarak has made a mistake. He's now down to 7th. Enzo in 2nd alongside Tony Reish in 3rd place as well. There we are, James Reish. We got that one right eventually. Through the final couple of corners then, Reigns Thomason in 4th. Finlay is in 5th at the moment, and showing what EVE, the Maltese team, have got. They've got pace and they've found a little bit of form at the moment, have the EVE, but they're currently fighting it out at the moment with CPI, with Jerry Van Bussel and Jeslar, but it is about the man of the moment, Joe Murphy, leading the way with a 37.027, beating his nearest teammate by over 2/10. Amazing.
Yeah, really good lap time there from Joe Murphy. Absolutely on the limit. Matteo invalidated, by the way, coming through turn number 7. Never seen an invalidation coming through that part of the track, and they end up down right at the back of the field. Joe Murphy, the other one out on top from Enzo in 2nd, Tony Reish in 3rd, Rens Thomason in 4th, Jerry Van Bussel there in 5th. Interesting to see how the 2 Dutchmen get on, pretty much on the same row of the grid. Finley there in 6th with Jeslar 7th. Mubarak after that shocker coming through turn 15. They're down in 8th with Allqueen in 9th, and Volokongan rounding off the top 10. 2 out of the top 10 of Xbox, by the way, as well. Kiki, Oku, Tales, Freddy, and Dan top 15. Then Jordan, Sam, Boyalulu, who did get lap times in. Samuel Barker also invalidated, along with Matteo, who starts right at the back of the field. And it's possibly, Jota, the worst possible track to start at the back of the field at, because you've got no chance trying to make your way through the field.
Yeah, absolutely. As we just take a quick look then at the standings before we get going for this event, though, Bunga Racing team, of course, leading the way. 382, 330, 304 for the top 3 at the moment. CPI just closing down the gap after a really good race weekend last time out, and that really sort of closes up the gap here. And the championship still in the favour of the Bunga Racing team, but that form is not going to be helpful. Is going to be helpful if they start to fall in a bit of a slump, as we saw last week.
Yeah, definitely. So I think BRT's consistency, I think just failing them slightly last week, that's what the gap's now closed down to, 52 points I'll make that between themselves and Team Jizu. Each side of their informed team. CPR were the 1-2, of course, last week. They're the informed team coming into tonight. They do retain part of that pairing as well, with Jerry Van Bussel for CPI. Finished 2nd, of course, last week in Imola. He's qualified well up there in, I think, 5th position behind Renz. So it's definitely looking to be up there. We've also got Top Team Motorsport, who do not want to be forgotten about as well. Great qualifying session from Enzo, qualifying in 2nd. But in the end, they've only got to beat one man, and that's Joe Murphy. But I will say about Joe Murphy, and I vividly remember this from the last time I covered WOR Console Tier 1 around here, he ended up absolutely causing chaos through the mid-pack, and I think he ended up DNFing or finishing absolutely nil points in that race. So Joe Murphy from pole position, I've been interested to see if he stays there.
There's your grid lineup then, of course. You're going to be the likes of Joe Murphy alongside the likes of Osku. Of course, never ever discredit the likes of TTM, though. Enzo did qualify well, but Mubarak making a mistake in that second sector puts him a little bit out of sync. TTM looking to try and find a little bit of sync, perhaps that they ended up falling out of a little bit earlier on in this season, James. Certainly looking forward to seeing what they could potentially bring to the table.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, to be honest, I think how the grid is really, you've got to look at ETA. I know we were just conversing there with Luke beforehand, and he mentioned about Renzo Matteo being their strongest lineup. Definitely going to watch out for them here tonight. There are a lot of teams, actually, that have got a very strong lineup here. BRT with Osku and Joe Murphy as well, of course, alongside them. It's a relatively good lineup. Oku, I think, might be the weak one of the two. But remains to be seen, of course, how things get on, of course, out on track. Team Shazoo have got a decent lineup, but they've got Ogwin alongside, and Ogwin has been known to finish nil point around here before. Whether or not he can manage that again is a different thing.
Yeah, certainly in that one as well. Keeping an eye out then before we get going for this sprint race. There are those in the chat as well. Thank you very much to every single one of you tuned in at the moment. Very early on into this into this early part of this weekend, rather, at the moment with 70 years. We are about to get going with the drivers very keen to show their worth here in the streets. We are in a sprint in Baku, and here he goes down the inside line. Joe Murphy trying to hold on around the outside, rather, from the inside of Enzo, who held up quite well, actually, in that one as well. Rens Thomason getting into his own little scrap as well in the McLaren alongside the Aston Martin, and then going down the inside of turn 2. Plenty of people also getting into the scrap around the back at the moment, but Mubarak down a couple of positions for TTM, but holding up at the moment quite well. No surprises, Joe Murphy.
There's a smashing front wing going off there. I think it's Ogwin that's dropping down the field. Saw the carbon fibre fly. He is then right at the back of the field for Shazoo. Disappointing start from Ogwin's perspective. Joe Murphy, though, leading the way. Enzo there in second. Tony Riesch in third. Rens Thomason in fourth. Jerry Van Bossel in fifth. Pretty much the front five remaining as they are right now. Jessel's not looking too bad as well on the back of Jerry Van Bossel. Further down the field, there was a lot of carbon fibre flying. There was an end plate came off, I think, one of the Williams, might be Sam, further down the field. Ogwin lost his front wing completely. He's down right at the back of the field. They come through the castle section for the first time. I try to go around the outside of the castle section once. Good job I'm not out there on track.
Currently on board with Tony Riesch at the moment, holding on to P3 as it stands as well. TF10 need these points at the moment, especially the Team RB looking to try and get Tales up from 9th at the moment, but beating him back over the curb and into the wall, actually, is Tony Riesch. I'm not surprised if he's actually got any kind of damage off of the back of that one, has he? You know, he's just got away with it, but he don't want to end up having too many of those smacks against the wall. Unfortunately, I have got a little bit of a problem at the moment with my controller. For some reason, it's trying to force me to push backwards and right at the moment, so I think I'll have to replace that controller in a second, but nonetheless, it means that onboards are going to be from the back now, apparently, but there we go. But Joe Murphy leading the way from the front from Enzo, from Tony Riesch, and then Rens Thomason, and then the CPI boys once again showing their worth in 5th and 6th place. But once again, EVE trying to get some good points on the board, and they will do with 7th place in Finlay.
Yeah, Finley there in 7th doing a good job. Jordan just moving up in position past Osku down in towards turn 1 as well. So Jordan there 13th, Osku there down in 14th, Freddie there in 15th as well. Really looking a very strong start to the race as well from Mubarak. He was looking on the back of Dan, has dropped down obviously position from the start, but he is now trying to gain back. He is on the back of Dan, run up the straight in towards turn 3. Not going to go for a move though from that far back is the Swiss man. But Joe Murphy leading the way, has got control of the race so far. There was a bit of a split happening actually between Enzo and Tony Riesch. It just went out for a second briefly. It's now within 7/10, and Enzo catches the curb like that. Could be seeing himself in the wall not in the too distant future. That was a big mistake from Enzo. Tony Riesch only gained a 10th out of it though.
Down another position at the moment is Mubarak, and there's your reason why. No end plates left or right at the moment for Mubarak, so he is really suffering out there at the moment, of course, in a race where you're not expected to make that critical pit stop. So at the moment, looks like TTM are only going to have that one driver in Enzo, but at least he's in the top 3. Jerry Van Bossel, lead driver at CPI at the moment. They're coming off of the back of a really good race last weekend as well, really holding their own, did the McLarens. So they're going to want to continue on that form, Jerry especially, as he is trying to chase down at the moment the Aston Martin of Rens Thomason.
Yeah, he is indeed. And Jovan Buss, of course, former PSGL, PSF1 champion, former PSGL, PSF2 champion as well, back in the day, has got Jeslov company his own teammate. He is looking to try and get on Rens Thomason. Rens is gaining on Tony Reich down the straight as well. Could see potential overtake though from Volokongan, the Alpine now moving past the Mercedes. Job done on Finley even. Volokongan through and he's into 7th. Finley there down into 8th. And Talas there in 9th position. Also gaining positions is Jordan throughout the field. Mubarak, obviously with that damage on the car, dropping there down into 13th position. Everyone looking quite good so far. Joe Murphy leading the way, Enzo in 2nd, Tony Reich there in 3rd. At this moment in time, the tech there, especially in the chat, Enzo's got 45% of ERS, Joe Murphy's got 22, so Enzo's got double the amount of ERS than Joe Murphy. I'm immediately thinking Tech's going to now be on the blow to BRT and say, right, Joe Murphy, conserve ERS.
Yeah, typically I would. I'm one of the commentators that don't, but oh, we've got a retiree. It's one of the Shizou boys. Ogween has gone for a retirement. He's out of this race. Sector 3 yellow flags wave there, so I'm assuming he's retired in the pit lane. Yep. Unfortunately, I'm struggling at the moment to be able to get any kind of maps on because my controller is refusing to navigate downwards because it is consistently navigating downwards. So we'll get that one fixed and we won't have that issue for the race, I do hope. Anyway, Sector 1 yellow flags wave, that will be for Ogween's ghost car now parked up, I believe, just out of turn number 3. But turn number 2 rather. Critically though, BRT Joe Murphy leading the way but not breaking the DRS of Enzo at the moment. He is holding his own and staying within the DRS. 6 laps to go in this sprint race in Baku. Initially, again, third favourites BRT through Joe Murphy, but his teammate Osku down in 16th at the moment and well out the points. Is that a precedent setter for BRT? Are we going to start to see once again a team leading them from the front and then at the back?
Potentially so. Rens Thomason, by the way, is gaining very quickly on the back of Tony Reich. Pulls for the move to the inside line, down in towards turn number 1. It is easy for the Dutchman. He's through and he's into 3rd. Tony Reich there down into 4th position. Didn't put up much of a fight at all as Kiki there drops down. Jordan gains 2 positions as a result of it, down the inside and towards turn number 1. Job done on him. Dan tries to get the switch back. Nearly bit of rear contact there on the rear wing of the car, but Jordan there in 10th, remaining in that position for now. Dan 11th, Kiki there in 12th. Just to confirm, Ogween did retire in the pit lane. His AI did retire as well, coming through in towards turn number 2 and 3. So that's where we saw the yellow flags, of course, out on track. Joe Murphy though leading the way. Enzo in 2nd, Rens Thomason 3rd, Tony Reich in 4th, Jovan Buss in 5th, Jezel in 6th. The gap now between 6th and 7th, 2.2 seconds. Volokongan has got to think about something. Maybe let Finley or Talas through and try and have a crack at getting back, potentially within the big points.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I've just been on board with Volokongan at the moment, and to be fair to EVE and Finley, they're actually holding their own. And remember, the more that Volokongan is just holding these guys up here with Finley and Talas, who's behind? But another EVE lad of Jordan. So Jordan maybe 2 seconds back, but he could close up that gap at the moment with Volokongan leading a second DRS train from 7th downwards. And that is going to be sort of a critical element to this one. And of course, FRT's Dan, and of course, love to get in that mix at the moment as well. FRT need every point they can get at the moment then. So as they come through here, as you've seen something.
Finley had a huge snap of oversteer coming out the inside of turn 15. Nearly let Talas in. Talas is now on the back of him, potentially running down the straight in towards turn number 1. It's a very long drag. It's nearly 1.5 kilometres straight here in Baku, passing the centre of arts, passing the flame towers as well, of course, around this track. And now Talas sets his sights on Finley. Finley sets his sights on Volokongan as well, and Volokongan potentially could be a sitting duck. Enzo swaps for Joe Murphy for the race lead. Could be 3 wide down the straight though in the battle I'm on board with. Finley gets the move done. Talas gets caught on the curb slightly, runs out wide. Volokongan is still there to the inside line. The Norwegian tries to fight back to the inside line. Might just do. Into the inside of turn number 2. Job done for him. Talas nearly in the wall.
Yeah, managed really well though in the end from that one, as you just did allude to as well. Joe Murphy switching positions then with Enzo, as we did say about Enzo, just keeping within touching distance at the moment of the fake Venezuelan, Irish, Jordanian man, as Kiki and Mateo switching positions down in 13th. Mubarak now down at the back of the grid. Remember, he's got no end plates left or right at the moment, so he's handicapped around here, and that is the situation for Mubarak, because that means that he's also got a time penalty as well, because he's of course cutting corners, or I don't know where you would end up track extending, perhaps at the end of the castle section. But yeah, that's a critical thing at the moment for the likes of Mubarak. It means that now his sprint race is pretty much over and done for. Enzo will lead the way in what is now a sprint race with a TTM sandwich.
Yeah, definitely so. Obviously, Mubarak there down at the back of the field will have to try and pick up those positions again, but obviously he has got that damage on that car. Joe Murphy very close to the wall there, coming to the left-hander once again at turn number 15. The Kick Sauber even on the back of the Red Bull. Rens Thomason just dropping off the back slightly, 6/10 of a second. It is a very good gaining straight, though, in terms of DRS and ERS around here. So that means could see Rens Thomason on the back of these two very soon indeed. We will begin to see, though, a few tactics, I think, begin to be played. Whether or not Joe Murphy wants to be there in front, whether or not Enzo wants to be there in front is now evident because Rens Thomason is catching them both of them, pulls the outside line in towards turn 1, maybe going for the move. The Aston Martin doesn't want the lead of the race just yet. Joe Murphy, in the end, gets the race lead. Rens in second, Enzo there in third. Well worked, I've got to say, from the BRT and the E-Tech man.
Yeah, once again, apologies to our viewers who might be wondering why are we constantly going on the back view. It's the controller for some reason is constantly pushing backwards, so I can't see what's happening, but it gives us a good view to see Enzo going for the move against Rens Thomason, but not able to make the move on Joe Murphy. So well held as Enzo gets back into it. While this is all happening, Jerry Van Bussel has made the move on Tony Reish, which now means TF10 have lost a position and a benefit of CPI, now 4 and 6.
Also means Jeslar is now on the back of Tony Reish and is looking pretty confident. There's a yellow flag. Is that Mubarak that is off at the back of the field? I think it might be. Mubarak is indeed off coming through turn number 3. Has got the car back going again, obviously with those end plates missing from earlier damage. He's there in 19th position. Joe Murphy leading the way though. Enzo second, Rens in third. Jerry Van Bussel fourth, Tony Reish in fifth, Jeslar there in 6th position. Lap 6 out of 9, about to go on to lap 7. No VSCs yet, no safety cars yet, just yet. I think the feature race might have something to bring though, indeed, later on. But Joe Murphy trying to now snatch away by about a second to Enzo. It's 8/10 of a second coming through the left-hand of 16. Now in towards the Kings of 17, 18 and 19. Enzo has got a very good ground though to make up down the straight. It's a very, very quick straight, very, very quick in terms of the DRS, and now Enzo sets aside front again on the back of Joe Murphy. You think he's probably not going to catch, and you might be right because he's nowhere near down and towards turn 1.
So a brief yellow flag being set up there, I think, again from Mubarak, but on this occasion not going for it. Here comes Enzo. Is he going to go for the move then down the inside line of turn 1? Oh, it collides ever so slightly at the back of the kick Sauber. So no overtake on this occasion, but we'll have to be very careful about when he hits that brake pedal. He's hit the wall. Joe Murphy going into the corner, and that may end up losing him time and losing him speed down here. And Enzo may go for the move here. We'll have to see. Unfortunately, we'll have to be on board with Joe Murphy as this happens. Will he go for it? Down the inside line, potential the number 5 Red Bull. Elects in the end not to go for that move. Stays in second place.
Yep, stays in second place. Rens on the back as well in third. Nobody wants to lead going on to the final lap of this race, and that is what we are now beginning to see. Joe Murphy, that was so strong in this first sector, in the third sector as well. Very, very strong out on track. In the end, Joe Murphy will be looking to try and conserve that lead. He did, of course, qualifying pole position. 1:37 flat, very quick lap time for a one-shot qualifying session. He's now trying to drag Enzo and Rens back out. But the theory, from my liking, is Enzo again has got a little bit more up his sleeve. It's a very quick closing track. Joe Murphy's there to be shot at. Whoever leads onto the final lap of the race is there to be shot at. Opens up immediately opportunities for Jerry Van Bussel, Tony Reish and Jeslar behind.
Lap 7 of 9, about to start the 8th lap as well when they come across the final couple of corners. You are tuned into WOR Legacy Division, and this is the Azerbaijan Grand Prix sprint race. And answers on a postcard, folks. So you think the race victor is going to be at the moment? The advantage always falls in hands of Bunga Racing Team. They've been flying high this season, but as it stands, it could be one of 5 teams that could take the victory here tonight. It could be BRT in the Kick Sauber, it could be TTM in the Red Bull, and it could be CPI in the McLaren. As I'm just keeping an eye out on TTM here, and it looks like just looking like he was going to get into the wing mirrors of the BRT man, and never ever ever forget the Aston Martin and Rens Thomason at the moment. They are flying high. Oh, as he goes for a little bit of a move somewhere in the back there, I think it might have been Matteo potentially. I'm not entirely sure, but it looks like it was definitely going side by side through turn 2. Have we got Enzo potentially going for the move against Joe Murphy, I wonder, or are they going to be once again staying in formation as you rightfully predicted, James? They're staying firmly in formation at the moment as they just navigate around the circuit, as Jeslar potentially trying to get on the back of Tony Reish, maybe.
Yeah, and then he forced him in for a mistake through turn number 4, and now all of a sudden the Frenchman's looking pretty weak, and he's there to be shot at again because Jeslar on the back of him is going to have that really good run down in towards turn number 1. But Joe Murphy leading this race now into the castle section for the penultimate time in the sprint. Enzo there in second, Rens in third. For my liking, Rens Thomason might be the man to ride on board with, I think, for this, because he is looking very, very strong going on towards the final lap of the race. Enzo on the back again. Joe Murphy is so strong through that middle sector, coming through where the castle section is. 7/10 of a second down, into the left-hander now, turn number 15, running down the hill and towards turn 16 again. Joe Murphy is so strong around this part of the track. But again, it creates the scenario where he's there to be shot at, because Enzo and Renz are going to be right on the back of him. Final lap of the race. Enzo, at the moment, 70% of EOS. Joe Murphy on 40, Renz on 67. Enzo and Renz are looking pretty good right now, going on to the final lap of the race.
Yeah, the final lap of this race, then, of course, is this where people are going to make the move, or are they going to do the right thing, potentially, and hold off? Is it going to be the TTM lads? Is it going to be Kick Sauber with BRT? Is it going, looking like getting really close and really getting up close and personal as Renz Thomason, of course. Remember Renz Thomason fighting hard with the likes of the ET8 team alongside Matteo, but Tales also trying to keep that pressure up at the moment, down in 7th place and holding on against Volakongan. Of course, remember Finley still in that battle as well for P8 in that one as well. Oh, Joe Van Bussel getting really up close and personal here with the likes of Renz Thomason. Are they going to go for the move going into turn 3? The answers on a postcard didn't need to be delivered at all there, because of course they're not going to. They're going to be all getting up close and personal for what we think is going to be a real scrap to the line, and who's going to have the most ERS, who's going to have the lowest wings, who is going to have the best exit out of the final major corners that, of course, you'll need to be braking at the absolute maximum. Here again, they're going through into the castle section. You want to keep it nice and tightly compact. Mubarak pitted for a set of soft tyres. He wanted to get the fastest lap. It won't count on record being as far back as 19th place for him, but it's just been an absolute shocker for a sprint. Hopefully that will not carry on going through into the main race at the end of this particular event. But one thing is certainly for certain, we don't know who is going to be the race victor. They're going to be coming through the final couple of corners. Who's going to have the better exit? Who's managed to charge the batteries up the most? Who's kept their ERS in none? Who's been the brave one through here as we keep an eye out on Joe Murphy? He's now going to power down this main straight, but the question is Enzo, is Renz, is Joe Van Bussel close enough to potentially attack? I'd argue Enzo probably is. He's already catching up at the moment. Is the Red Bull, is TTM Enzo going to take this race victory in the last second? Joe Murphy's been leading for the majority of it, but the DRS hasn't even been activated, and TTM have taken the lead of this race on the very final breath of this one. He wins the Azerbaijan sprint race from BRT's Joe Murphy, and Renz Thomason just missing out on second place by 91 thousandths of a second, and Joe Van Bussel missing out on the podium positions by less than a tenth himself. Jeslar only missing out by 82 thousandths of a second, and Tales 1/10 it was in the end, and Finley just missing out on 8th for 9th place as well. Fede though, TRT needed that. They're in the top 10.
They are in the top 10 indeed, and Samuel Barker's finished down in 17th for them as well. We're just waiting back coming through the final couple of corners. Renz Thomason, by the way, would have been wanting, I think, 50 yards of that straight to be a little bit longer, because he was closing rapidly on the back of Joe Murphy. It would have been a different result if that start-finish line was 50 yards forward, 50 yards further down the track, even down in towards turn number 1. But in the end, Enzo takes the race win. He had double the amount of ERS going through the final couple of corners, got the move done. Joe Murphy's very happy, but what could have it been for Joe Murphy with that race win snatched at the last second? Matteo was awarded driver of the day by the in-game fans. Enzo turned that to perfection.
Yeah, he absolutely timed it perfectly, and he got the best exit out of all of them. Of course, no podium ceremony for the sprint race. They'll be taking the medals and told to get ready for the main race. But before we go for a quick break, there it is. TTM Enzo then taking the victory alongside BRC's Joe Murphy. Renz Thomason rounding out the top 3. Jerry Van Bussel, Jeslar 4th and 6th. Then for CPI with Tony Reich managing just to hold on to P5. Volakongan will be happy with P7, but Shazoo once again showing that they're a little bit off the pace of the current championship holders, with Tales in 8th, Finley in 9th, and TRT's Fede rounding out the top 10. Towards the back, of course, you've got Matteo in 11th, then from Kiki, Jordan, Dan, Osku, Boyalulu, Samuel Barker, Sam, and Mubarak rounding out the top 19, and then, of course, Shazoo's other driver not able to round out. Before we go for a quick break, we'll take a look then at the standings. The standings are indicating, this is, of course, pre-sprint race. In this scenario, James, Bunga Racing Team leading from the front through Joe Murphy, but once again showing that they're a little bit topsy-turvy.
Once again showing they are topsy-turvy indeed, and again it's about that consistency. That's why I put them so far down in my predictions, by the way. I just thought I'd mention that again for about the 10th time this season. But Bunga Racing Team out on top, 52 points over Team Shazoo. Team Shazoo didn't have a strong race there, to be fair. Joe Murphy's picked up extra points there over Volakongan and Ogween. Ogween, of course, DNFing out of the race. In the end, Team Shazoo picking up points with Volakongan. I think they're P8. I've just seen a safety car go down a pit lane, by the way, on the left-hand side. Very strange. E-State in third on 304, CPI in fourth on 285, Top Team Motorsport in fifth on 245. TLT in sixth, they definitely need to try and get some points over TTM tonight. They're on 183. Team TF10 in seventh on 146. FLT on 130, Novus in 9th and 76, then Project Avisio in 10th on 66, and Grand Track 10 and 11 on 29 points. However, the updated standings have just been posted, so they will be changed.
They will be changed. We'll take a quick look at that one in a bit. I'm sure we'll take a final look at the drivers before we head away for a second. Once again, a real mixed bag when it comes to the driving lineup as well. You'd expect the likes of Matteo to be up there, but it's been a bit of a shaky season for Matteo as well. Championship winner, not by accident, but so far it seems like this particular game cycle is not taken too kindly for the pre-championship.
Yeah, definitely. So Matteo has had some really good rich vein of form though recently in PSGL. Obviously won last night in Monaco in what was an absolute cracker, by the way. Go in and tune it in because it was an absolute cracker towards the end of the race, especially the final 3 laps. Matteo, though, did end up winning last night. He has got form, though, coming into tonight, but his P20 there in qualifying, then rectifying that with a near point score finish there in the end. He's going to be one to look at, I think, for EC8. I think Rens Thomason's obviously quite strong in qualifying. Factor him into it. BRT, by the way, 392 to Team Chazoo on 334. So BRT, I make that 58 points separating the top 2.
Cracking. We should be in for an absolute blinder for certain. I'm just resetting my game. Turns out it was actually a complete game glitch that my game for some reason was constantly pointing downwards. So we'll reset that one as the lobby's being restarted, and we'll be taking a very brief break. We'll be on for what will be an 18-minute qualifying session before we head on into the main race in Azerbaijan. So it will be, I'm sure, an absolute blast. I'm looking forward to this one, James. I think it'll be an absolute blinder before we head away. You know, initial thoughts, initial precedent setter. Looks like that Joe Murphy is going to be leading from the front, but he's got competition.
He has got competition, and he's normally quite strong in qualifying as well. So he's definitely going to be looking to see if he can. Obviously, the drivers are going to now be retiring from the race just while this new lobby gets set up. But Joe Murphy definitely going to be up there. I say factor in Rens Thomason, factor in Mubarak potentially. He was a little bit disappointing there in qualifying and indeed in the race as I get a Windows Defender update. Don't want that at the minute. But very, very good racing out on track there in the sprint. Sets the scene for the feature. Sets the scene potentially as well for quite a lot of action.
Yeah, it should be an absolute blinder for certain as well. We'll be back in just a few short moments. Don't go away. Welcome back then, folks, to WOR. This is the Legacy Division. The drivers are just getting themselves ready in the lobby. It is myself, Jota, alongside James Head, and as we take a final minute to actually get a little bit of a breather, James, thank you for being alongside me for this one. It's obviously going to be a little bit of a mixed bag, this one. We're expecting the qualifying to... should be in the favour of the likes of Joe Murphy. He has got competition tonight, as... well, you know, the drivers will be hoping that that will end up potentially closing down the competition a little bit, because we have got the standings updated, but sprint race, you know, the grid looked like this. Bunker Racing Team leading the way on 382 from Shazoo on 330, ET8 on 304, CPI closing down the gap on 285. Top Tier Motorsports suggesting they've got the pace tonight. They could close down the gap as well. Yes, Bunker Racing Team leading the way, but last week showed a few cracks for the championship leaders.
It did, and they've also gained points there in the sprint. It's now 58 points advantage between themselves and Team Shazoo. So John Murphy did do one half of the story. The second half of the story, though, well, there's technically three parts of the story because short qualifying is coming up very soon indeed. But in the race, it is definitely going to be very interesting, I think, to see how Joe Murphy acts, how Oku can try and really build back as well. He's strong in short qualifying. He can be in the mid-pack on the best days. So BLT have got a real asset there in Oku. But in the end, it's going to be really interesting to see how things go on. Apparently, Joe Murphy has just said, though, on the Discord, why is there Q1, 2, and 3 qualified set? So it makes me think he might be doing a full qualifying rather than a short qualifying. Hopefully, Joe Van Bussel has not got this wrong. Otherwise, the blame's on him.
I did see short qualifying in the lobby settings, thankfully. And, of course, in the top left-hand corner when we go live, you will see Q1. But, of course, it is just one qualifying session before we get into the race. So, hopefully, nothing too bad. The drivers will just get themselves ready, having a proper look at the conditions, making sure that they're ready for this particular event. As it just turns out, I've decided to also close down my stream setup as well. So, I've got all of this streaming, but I haven't actually got the game streaming on my computer, which is very peculiar. But we'll get that one set up in a second. But yeah, you know, we're talking about drivers as well, drivers of high quality as well. Thank you very much, computer, for giving me as a notification. The situation report at the moment is that, you know, the likes of Mubarak and Enzo have got the pace tonight. So we are expecting potentially, as I'm getting deafened by the F1 cars out there at the moment, Mubarak and Enzo have got the pace. Finley is also really up there for EVE tonight as well. They could be in a little bit of a mixed bag for some good points tonight. But Shazoo, the championship defenders at the moment, are still off the pace at the moment. What is happening to the Scottish outfit?
Honestly, I'm not really sure. They have got a weak lineup tonight as well. Volokonga and Ogween. Ogween obviously proving that in the sprint pretty much like 30 seconds after I said that he DNF'd around here the last time he came. And what did he do? He DNF'd in the sprint. So it hasn't gone according to plan so far for Team Shazoo. They have got Volokonga, though, who's a real asset around this track, has picked up a podium around here in the past as well. So he has got very good form coming into tonight. Whether or not, though, Team Shazoo can really find and fire in this 18-minute qualifying session remains to be seen. I'm looking at TF10 potentially to be a real mix-up, a bag tonight. Tales there is slightly slower than Tony. Tony Reach is very, very good. Since switching back from PC to console, he's now obviously on the PlayStation side, mixing it up with some of the PC still. But Tony Reach is a real asset. So TF10, I would not be surprised if they pull off the P1 tonight.
And lo and behold, we have now got a fully functioning camera setup where I'm actually able to be on board with the driver without looking behind them. So that's now going to be nice to watch, to say the least, as we're just on board with Joe Murphy, first driver to get going with a lap as he's just going through turn 2, clipping the wall ever so slightly. Of course, these tyres are all brand new now, so the driver's very keen to just get on with it, get going here. Joe Murphy, you know, a driver of real high caliber, of real high pace. I'd argue probably the fastest driver on console at the moment. I know maybe a little bit of Xbox bias creeping in there, but he is showing, if it's not by the fastest driver, certainly the driver most in form at the moment, surely.
Yeah, most informed at the moment. I definitely don't think he's the quickest, though, on console. I'll have to argue Renz Thomason is for PlayStation. So that's where we're going to agree to disagree. Joe Murphy, by the way, is looking very strong, though. Coming now through the castle section, through the left-hander of 8, 9, and 10. Very close to the wall now through 11. Through the left-hander of turn number 12. Right at the top of the hill, highest point on the track. He has got the TF10 man of Tony Reach for company in behind as well, along with Tales, who I think is in behind as well. So both TF10 drivers running in slight slipstream, you could say. There's about 3 or 4 seconds as Joe Murphy hits the wall. Should be around a 1:12.7 middle sector. Oh, 1:12.7 middle second from Joe Murphy. Really, really strong. Gets out wide slightly coming through 16. Now coming through 18, then through the right-hander turn number 19, then flicking it right through turn number 20. It's looked a decent lap. I think Tony Reich, though, was quicker, if I'm not mistaken. Joe Murphy now on the run to the line. Just visually on the track map, I think he has caught him as Kiki has crashed in the castle section. So that is him now right out of the session with GT10. Joe Murphy on the run to the line. 37 flat to start off the night. Is Tony Reich quicker? No, 37.2. Differences in opinion there from the timings, but Joe Murphy out on top for now.
Yeah, not too bad at all there. As Rens Thomason 37.4, 4/10 of a second down his teammate, 1/10 down, but Mubarak also getting in the mix as well and just tucking in behind by Tony Reich by 12 thousandths of a second. I'm keeping an eye out on Samuel Barker. There'll be plenty of other drivers that are going to be coming across the line ahead of him, but TRT need to find some pace here. The question is Samuel Barker, will he be able to find the pace and potentially get up there as well? He only goes 11th fastest at 38.2, so well off the pace at the moment. RTRT, a team that I rated quite low down, and a lot of people said that's controversial, you shouldn't put them down there, but honestly, TRT have not shown the pace that perhaps they've got, and Fede also showing the similar situation. They're over a second down on Joe Murphy at the moment. TRT not showing their best hand, you'd have to say, around here at the moment, as Enzo coming across the line as well, looking to try and get it alongside Mubarak. 37.2 is what we're going to be looking for as he comes across the line right now. Only a 37.4 and just behind Rens Thomason.
Yeah, he bounced off the wall at turn 15 to Enzo, and that's him now down in 5th position as a result of that. 37.448, 300th of a second behind Rens. He's a 10th quicker than Matteo, so he has got a little bit of leverage between the gaps there with a 10th between himself and Matteo. Whether or not, though, he can actually find more time on that lap remains to be seen. Joe Murphy, by the way, setting near enough the same lap time as he set in one-shot qualifying than he has done in short qualifying, as the sun now begins to come through the clouds. Avatar mentioned in the chat as well, potential rain in the right. Luke Rapata tried to have me on last night in Monaco, and we didn't think there was going to be rain in the race, and then rain appeared out of nowhere with 5 laps to go in the race and created one of the best finishes on console this season. So, whether or not we get to see the rain here tonight is a different thing, but Baku at the best of times, even in the dry. One of the worst tracks on the calendar, one of my worst hated tracks because I try to go around the outside of the castle section on somebody in a competitive league race around here. Trust me, I ended up DNFing out of the race because of that. But in the end, for this moment in time, Joe Murphy out on top, Tony Reich in second, Mubarak in third. I'm glad I'm in the comment box, not being out there on track.
On board with FRT Sam then, as he's just getting going with his lap as well. A little bit shaky through turn 1, not looking confident at the moment in that Williams Mercedes. FRT in decent form themselves at the moment, hopefully just trying to keep up at the moment with the likes of EVE, because them and EVE were expected to be in a close combat in the championship, but as it stands so far, EVE have got the pace to potentially beat FRT. I think especially this second quarter of the season, certainly EVE have found a little bit of a rhythm going at the moment, as FRT is still struggling to try and field sort of consistent runners, and I think one of those, Dan, has probably been the front runner for them at the moment. But on board with Sam, apparently the purple first sector with a 34.9. I don't think so on this occasion, but losing the rear ever so slightly and colliding into the wall as he's entering into the second sector, chucking it through the right hander, wants to cut that corner ever so slightly and does so, then going through into the nearly called it the casino section. I knew I'd call it casino at some point. Castle section, going through the left hander, and then try and keep it in the track limits, but then unfortunately not able to do so.
Now, too far out wide, he actually messed up coming through the castle section, and that just led him to drift out wide, coming through 11, then again through 12. That's why he's picked up the track limits in validation, so that's him now down in 17th position as a result. Owen there in the chat saying, bad Bramer? No, Bass Bramer there in the chat. And Sam's nearly spun, actually, coming through 15 as I ride on board with him. Jeremy Bussell, though, looks like he's going again, the former PSGL, PSF1 champion. Back on PC, back on PlayStation. Really good to see him back. Of course, picked up a P2 finish in Imola last week as well. And now he's on cascading the run down in towards turn number 3 down the next 1 kilometre straight that this track does have. Swear Baku will turn into 1 kilometre straight, I think, for every single race that we come into in the near future, as Jevan Bussell comes through 4. Now into the left-hand of turn number 5. First sector split. 34.2, slightly off from where I expect them to be. Yeah, not too bad from Jerry Van Bussel on this occasion. He's going to keep his firm foot planted to the floor. Of course, remember, the drivers are all have got ghosting permanently on, so there will be no impeding in the result of, or no collisions, but there'll still be impediments that may be investigated by the stewards, as we've seen, I'm sure, multiple times, actually, in WOR Legacy this season. Plenty of drivers still warming up their tyres, and I think they're just going to have to be known here that Jerry Van Bussel is in the way here, and they may end up getting a
few calls potentially for some kind of impediments. I'm sure CPI certainly will be appealing to the stewards in that one. Their team manager does tend to scream quite loudly, does Gatkowski, about those kind of things, so they'll be happy to send that one to the stewards, even though there may be a chance it will just be dismissed outright. Through the final couple of corners then, Jerry Van Bossel looking to try and set early precedent for CPI. They've looked decent in the sprint race, decent 7th place for Jeslar, but they'll be hoping that Jerry Van Bossel can push towards the likes of Mubarak and Rens Thomason. I'm expecting a 37-3 perhaps to split them. We'll see though, as he will come across the line right now. Jerry Van Bossel 37-3, I'm calling 37-2 is what he gets. He beats Mubarak and showing that McLaren and their low downforce setup that easily got Enzo the win, that easily got Enzo the win for TTM, is perhaps reflected in CPI as well.
Yeah, potentially so. Jerry Van Bossel there in third, splitting the pair between Tony Reich and Mubarak. Mubarak just stolen up again. Rens Thomason has found 1,000th of a second, by the way, in the first sector. Just gets killed on the curb coming through turn number 6 as well. He'll be looking to try and improve. Joe Murphy, by the way, is a 10th.5 up in the first sector. Okay, 34.1 in the first sector from Joe Murphy. The Jordanian, as he's now known as, of course, these days, now coming to the right-hand of turn number 7, then in toward the castle section of 8, 9, 10, 11, and then the left-hander of turn number 12. We will see what Joe Murphy can do, of course, out on track. Runs wide, not as wide as what Sam did on his lap, but he runs wide still, gets the track, it's still valid, obviously, track limit still valid on his lap. Now coming down the hill and toward the left-hander, 15. Gets caught completely on the bump. 12.6 in the middle, 12.4 in the middle, 2 tenths up, looking good.
Yeah, he definitely had at least another couple of tenths potentially in his back pocket as well after that jump over the curb. That one massive over there. Los went onto 2 wheels going through turn 15. Astonishing. Of course, he won't get the tow from that car in front here because, of course, all the ghosting is on. So DRS will be enabled for the kick Sauber as he'll come down here towards the straight. I'm expecting a 36.8 if he comes across the line right now. 36.8, 36.7, 8.9. Just a little bit faster than the 36.8 that I thought he was going to get. But he improves on his lap even further and bridges that gap. Tony Reich improving in the first sector by 0.03 of a second and only 39th thousandths of a second faster in the second sector. Apparently purple for Tony Reich, so this will be close if that is true as he comes across into the final couple of corners. Mubarak with a 36.8 shows that the track is starting to evolve with that sunshine now blaring onto the asphalt beneath them at the moment on the street circuit, starting to warm up, the grip starting to increase, but will the RB, the TF10 man Tony Reich, be able to get any closer to Joe Murphy? No, he will not. 37.1 beats his initial lap time, but unfortunately 0.02 of a second down on ETH. Matteo stays 4th.
Rens Thomason, by the way, invalidated on his run as well, so he's there down in 6th position right now. Jerry Van Bossel there in 5th, remaining in the pit lane. Interesting that he's staying in the pit lane there. He's obviously there down in 5th position, looking to try and get the move on. Jeslar, by the way, I'm not sure if he's on a lap. Don't think he is. I think he's running out of fuel. But he was completely blocked there by a kick Sauber of Joe Murphy coming through the left hand of turn number 12. He was blocked if he was on a lap. I don't think, as I say, Jeslar is. He's 4.6 seconds down in the first sector, so he's definitely not. Enzo, though, was looking improving. 12.7 in the middle sector, looking to try and improve once again. To maybe Rens Thomason, Tony Reich, that sort of area. Comes the line 5th ahead of Jerry Van Bossel. So pretty much exactly where I expect them to go in the end. 5th position, splitting the RB and the McLaren. So very good lap time indeed by them. But look at Matteo to Enzo, followed by 200th of a second. Very, very close out on track. There are still lap times coming in, by the way. Sam, I think, is next to come across the line in the Williams. FRT's had an absolute disaster so far. And Sam's lap time, honestly, puts me to shame. 39 flat in that lap time from Sam. I probably could beat that, and I'm not even being serious. Yeah,
he's really struggling out there at the moment, and FRT and Dan as well. Usually they're Stig of FRT, if you will, and unfortunately Dan really not finding any comfort out there at the moment around Azerbaijan. Keep an eye out on Fede as well, who's also trying to get in there as well to manage to get into the top 10 in the sprint race. In the top 10 in qualifying, 9th overall, but abandons his lap then on this particular occasion. Doesn't look like he's going to be improving anytime soon. Will FRT's Fede, keeping an eye out and see if there's any other people on laps at the moment. Perhaps Enzo, I'm not entirely sure at the moment. He's a little bit off the pace, isn't he, to say the least, for him to be even anywhere near a lap. So I think everyone is now getting themselves ready for the next set of laps, and this next set of laps will probably be the last ones at the moment, and this is where we start to see people now try to maybe cater to a lower downforce setup on the front wing, perhaps knock off a few clicks, see if they can find an extra 1,000th down that main straight. That could be the difference between you being first and second. especially in third and fourth as well. 0.02 of a second separating TF10's Tony Reish and Matteo for ET8. But once again, showing top four, all different teams. And then if you take out TTM in this scenario, who are the front team, if you will, you've got the likes of Jerry Van Bussel there for CPI in 6th place at the moment. So very, very mixed bag to say the least out there, and any particular team could potentially be on pole, but so far advantage Joe Murphy, but again, not by much.
Yeah, Matteo Tatales, by the way, 6/10 covering the top, the third down to 17. In the end, Joe Murphy Mubarak fell out 0.4 of a second out of the full second that covers the top 17. That is how dominant the front two are so far in qualifying. 4 minutes ago in the session, Joe Murphy had on top Mubarak second, and then Matteo in third, Tony Reish in fourth, Enzo, Jerry Van Bussel, Renz, Jeslar, Petty, and Jordan top 10, Volokongan, Finley, Ogween, Oku, and then Samuel Barker 15th, Dan 16th, then Tala 17th, Boyle Lilo 18th, Sam 39 flat, they're down in 19th position. Kiki obviously crashing within qualifying, and they're down at the back of the field right now. Joe Murphy, though, out on top. Mubarak second, Matteo there in third. Jerry Van Bussel saying in the Discord, nice grid penalties for Shazoo and E8. That was on his lap time, remember. Lovely blocking, he has mentioned, and I'm not even going to repeat the rest. But Jerry Van Bussel has certainly put Shazoo and E8 on notice, potentially with a blocking penalty.
Yeah, no expectations that CPI are going to be playing politics. They're obviously known for it a little bit at the moment out in the esports sphere. We've seen, obviously, previous competitions that will go unnamed, where they made unnamed situations and unnamed comments, shall we say, which saw them getting banned, which they say that they actually left the competition. That were a couple of weeks ago, actually, wasn't it, for CPI? But playing politics in World Online's Racing's Legacy Division is what they're known for a little bit at the moment. But that's all the fun and games, isn't it, when you're playing out for a big cash prize at the end of this championship season. Of course, Valakongan then leading the way from Team Shazoo, and they were the first person to set a lap on these final runs in this qualifying session. And of course, remember, there is no Q2 and no Q3. We did the sprint race earlier on. It was only a 9-lap sprint, so it absolutely flew by. It was definitely a sprint, wasn't it? But the drivers will only have to cater for one qualifying session, so this is it. It's make or break, especially for the likes of Dan and Sam down in FRT, really struggling out there at the moment, the FRT boys, and EVE as well, Finlay, perhaps better race pace than qualifying pace at the moment, so he might climb up the rankings. But once again, the championship defenders, Team Shazoo's and Alpine's Valakongan and Ogween, so far off the pace in 11th and 13th.
Yeah, John and Finley, by the way, very, very much on the same page in terms of their lap time. Only 1100th of a second, covering Jordan and Finley 10th and 12th position respectively. They're looking very consistent right now out on track. It's whether or not they can find time on the final runs. Normally around this track you don't. So I'm just going to hold everyone to that now in the comment section. That I'll be saying, oh yeah, well, this driver will improve, this driver will improve, this driver will improve. They probably won't, because they normally pick up a lot of invalidations late on. Volokongan is going to be the first to try out that method and try out that trial and error that I've certainly got going on in my brain right now. Down and toward the left-hander on turn number 1 is the Norwegian. He has got, I think, Joe Murphy in behind. 36.789 currently topping the session is the BRT man, looking to try and improve Matteo in behind as well. But Volokongan through the left-hander turn number 2. Do now down the straight into the left-hand turn number 3. We'll see on board, certainly from my perspective at least, down in towards turn number 3, and then through the first sector. What Volokongan is doing, as my voice is going, as you can probably tell. Volokongan now through the right-hander in towards turn number 4. Nearly locks up into the wall there. Very, very tight, these walls, of course. Volokongan, though, should be up in the first sector. He is up in the first sector, 400s up.
Yeah, not too bad in the first sector indeed, and allowing to potentially get a little bit closer potentially to the likes of Jeslar, but he needs to have an absolute blistering second sector if he wants to get in there at the moment. All of the drivers now just getting themselves ready with 35 seconds to go for their laps as well. Jordan and Finlay, the EVE boys, are the last ones to go, so they're leaving it very late indeed, are the Mercedes outfit. Keep an eye out, though, on as Joe Murphy has lost his front wing, so no improvement then for the BRT man, unless he's trying to get I mean, of course, course, they won't be very, very late on the brakes and just kissing the wall there is Volakongan. Is Joe Murphy trying to go for the tactic, potentially to have more straight line speed on the straight? I think it's going to cost him big time if he's done it very early on. In fact, no, he's giving that lap up entirely. So Joe Murphy won't be improving, so the pole sitter will not be improving. That opens up an opportunity for the likes of Mubarak, who is very close indeed to taking pole position here for TTM, but the advantage is going to be on Volakongan, who will come across the line right now. 11th place is where he's at. Where is he going? 6th overall for Team Shazoo. It's exactly what they've been looking for at the moment as well. We've got the ET8 boys coming across the line. Mateo first. He pits. He's done. He's not happy with his lap. 37.1 for him. Here comes Rex Thomason, who comes across the line with a 37.0 of his own. Mubarak is flying, says James, as he invalidates, but he's improving in the second sector. Joe Van Bussel goes 4th fastest. Indeed, a good lap for them as well. Enzo looking to try and improve, but it says Mubarak is on pole, says James Head. Will he be on pole is a question. Will the PlayStation man beat the Xbox man? He's flying in the second sector. He's flying around the rest of the circuit. TTM need this one. Comes across the line. He does not get pole and misses by a very small margin indeed. He finds the 10th, but he misses out on the straight, and that costs him dearly. Samuel Barker for TRT will not be, it only improves to 16th fastest. Finley will not improve from 15th. That's a shocker for me for EVE. Will Jordan, well, Jordan has out-qualified his teammate, but will he go even further than 14th? He comes across the line. He stays in 14th place. Overall then, Joe Murphy counting and thanking his lucky stars. He gets pole position, but Mubarak, where did that pace go at the end?
That pace went down the straight, of all places, where you would think he'd be absolutely flying down the straight. He lost all the speed for some reason, and in the end, ended up only improving by 900ths of a second. Was a 10.5 up in the middle sector. So up until that point, Mubarak, that's why I mentioned he's going to be on pole. He's not on pole. 1400ths of a second. His disappointing straight line speed really, really puts him in there. And Joe Murphy, with crashing through the castle section, losing his front wing, is on pole position. Mubarak in second, Enzo third, Renz fourth, Joe Bussel fifth, Mateo sixth, Tony Reich, Volakongan, Jesdor, Dan top 10, then Tales, Ogween, Ferry, Jordan, Finley top 15, and Samuel Barker, Oku there with Boyalulo covering by about a second the top 18, Sam there in 19th, and then Kiki right down there in P20 out on track. Joe Murphy takes the race win, takes the pole position. Whether or not he takes the race win, that remains to be seen. Luke has just put in the Discord as well. What I saw on Mubarak's lap time, he did use the wall on the right-hand side coming through turn number 3, and again coming through turn 15. Whether that's allowed in the rules and regulations remains to be seen.
Well, either way, TTM have managed to get second and third place, so they'll be happy with this one. Taking a very brief break, of course, as we'll be getting the lobby reset up again. So turn the ghosting off, because, of course, all ghosting is turned on during qualifying. Joe Murphy leading the way then from Mubarak and from Enzo. Renz Thomason in 4th, Jerry Van Bussel in 5th, Mateo in 6th, Tony Reich in 7th from Volakongan, Jeslar and Dan making up the top 10. Dan will be happy to get into the top 10, actually. That's exactly what FRT need and the Williams need to get themselves into the big points here. His teammate, unfortunately, all the way down at the moment in 19th, splitting the two GT10 boys. So Sam a little bit off the pace, but an opportunity, no doubt, for Dan to potentially close down the gap. Drivers will be retiring and we could get on with this lobby imminently. You know, the situation report, therefore, James, is, you know, TTM are the team, when you look at the overall picture and look at the team's perspective, advantage falls on TTM, though Joe Murphy is just pipping them to the post.
Yeah, Joe Murphy's pipping them to the polls. It's whether or not Joe Murphy can use a potential advantage early on to try and potentially see where TTM's weaknesses are. We saw with Mubarak in the first race where his weakness was, and that was coming through turn number 1 and losing both of his end plates. So we will not want to be caught up in any sort of incident once again. He is further up the field this time, which is very good. But obviously it remains to be seen whether TTM can now act on that 2-3 in qualifying. Enzo well up there as well. So it does remain to be seen whether or not they can gain some form of advantage over BRT coming into tonight. Who really needs to get the advantage, though, is Team Chazoo. They're only, 58 points behind coming into the feature. It means Ogween and Volakongan up against it. Joe Murphy on pole position. Again, adds into the mix the championship picture. All the teams, bar Team Chazoo, are doing better than Team Chazoo themselves. That's
the critical thing as well, because remember, Team Chazoo are still without a race victor, still without a race victory tonight, aren't they? So going throughout this season, they've done 10 rounds of racing, and not a Chazoo driver has won a race. So this is the critical thing for Team Shizou. Where has that pace gone? Has this game cycle critically caused them issues? And is that now welcoming perhaps teams we would have considered to be midfielders and back markers to the front of the field? And that's exactly what has happened. The drivers will be getting themselves very keen and getting going with this race. We're taking a very short break as we get on for what will be an intense race in Azerbaijan. Don't go away. Back in a few. So then, folks, we're heading over into a very brief break as we get on for what will be, I'm sure, a very intense race at Azerbaijan. The lobby's been set up, the drivers are getting ready. We'll be back in just a few short moments. Just still waiting on the drivers getting into the new lobby, so fingers crossed we'll be getting going in just a few short moments. Don't go away. Welcome back then, folks, to WOR. This is the Legacy Division. It is myself, Giotto, once again, alongside Influenza himself, James Head. I'm sorry, James, you seem to be a little bit down in the dumps at the moment with all of this flu going around. It is the winter season, but hopefully a little bit of heat can help you, and a little bit of heat certainly from this race. It is heating up out there at the moment. We're going to get going with the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. A couple of restarts needed, of course, between sprint and the main race, but the drivers are all ready and raring to go. TTM lining on top as regards of the teams, but the man on top, Joe Murphy.
Yeah, Joe Murphy obviously out on top in terms of qualifying, and he did an absolutely fantastic job. In the end, Mubarak got very unlucky. He didn't have the straight line speed down the straight. He had the lap perfectly set up, a 10th and a half up in that middle sector, didn't improve, 1400s down by the end of it, and in the end, Joe Murphy nicked pole position, nicked the first spot essentially on track. But is that really the best spot to be in out on track? Because he found out the hard way in the sprint that first is not necessarily the place you want to be in around Baku, especially with a long 1.5 kilometre straight down in towards turn number 1. He got outdone by Enzo. Enzo took the right spin. Joe Murphy then again out-qualified him in qualifying. Remains to be seen whether Joe Murphy can keep it up. If he can learn from his mistakes in the sprint, he should be the favourite. But I just have a feeling something is going to happen in this race, i.e. VSCs or safety cars.
Yeah, the bottom line is that, you know, Azerbaijan tends to be one of those circuits where people can be at their absolute best. Sometimes they can really suffer from over-aggression, and I'm expecting, you know, TTM are probably learning from their lessons of this season, a bit over-aggressive at times, so fingers crossed they're going to take the opportunity of second and third place on the grid through Mubarak and Enzo. But Joe Murphy, once again, showing that BRT have got their stig in Joe Murphy. Oscar a little bit further back, however, and this is again going down to that question, isn't it, about BRT. Last week, they ended up showing that they're not as formidable as we initially thought they were, and they fielded 2 drivers of very different calibers tonight, and that is going to offer an opportunity for the midfield to start closing down the gap. This is the standings pre-sprint race, but Bunga Racing Team on 382, Shazoo 330, ET8 304, CPI 285, and then TTM 245. Fell off a little bit of a cliff, TTM, but showing the pace once again and trying to squeeze down the gap between first and fifth. And once again, Bunga Racing Team, we thought were potentially going to run away with it, and suddenly the gap's closing up.
Yep, gap is closing up, and obviously with that point total that they had in the sprint, 6 points over Team Shazoo, gap now 58 points. That advantage is somewhat now in their favour, but Team Shazoo have got a very weak lineup tonight. I think Volakongan and Old Green haven't shown the best of what they can. It is raining out on track here in Baku. Avatar said there's going to be rain in the race. There is rain in the race, so I'll hold Avatar to account on that one. It is going to be intermediate compound tyres, I think, off the outset, and we know who is strong around here, or in particular, on a set of intermediate compound tyres. That only qualified pole position, and Joe Murphy. So Joe Murphy now definitely looking to try and improve on his lap time.
Oh, wow.
In the end, though...
Sorry to interrupt. I've just head over into the race director so we can have a quick look here. People are being have been told you're starting on the dries. So the conditions have just started to deteriorate, which means we should be seeing a mad rush of people going to intermediate tyres if these conditions continue. But as it stands so far, surely there's an expectation the drivers are going to have to go onto the soft tyres so they can get the maximum amount of grip out of the circuit before they switch to the intermediate. Or is the conditions out there not too bad that they could potentially stretch out their first stint and they may have to use a medium? This is a little bit of a mixed bag. This offers more questions than does answers, you know?
But the more the rain that falls out on track before this race begins, the more chaotic I think it is going to be off the outset. Do we get a scenario where we see the rain affect the track within the first 2, 3, 4 laps of the race, and then we see everyone switching to inters? That's what I saw in a league race around here. I think it was on F122, if I'm not mistaken. That exact same thing happened in League of Europe. I'm sure Jota knows which race and knows which league I'm actually on about in terms of that. But I certainly commentated on a race around here where it was that scenario. So are we going to get that scenario once again? Are we going to see Joe Murphy potentially out on top, like he has done in Singapore in the past around on inters? He is a very, very good on the inters. But further down the field, other drivers are strong on the inters. Matteo, for example. Volakongan, for example. Enzo, for example, as well. Just going to name out a few, and it's going to be a very interesting one now with this rain falling.
With the rain now falling, the track conditions slowly deteriorate. Of course, the drivers will be getting themselves ready and raring to go. We are expecting green lights any second now. One thing is for certain, though, is that we have had a countdown timer over the last couple of rounds. So are we going to have another countdown timer, or are we going to have straight to the grid, I wonder? We'll keep an eye on that one. I'm just going to work under the assumption that there is going to be no timer. So very quickly, James, early favourite.
Oh, in the conditions, Joe Murphy, but I don't think he'll win.
Here we go then with the counting down the lights. It's 1, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4, and it's 5 lights. It's 5 lights, and they are a go. The drivers, here they are down that inside line. Mubarak will try to potentially attack Joe Murphy, but in these treacherous conditions, it may be a little bit precarious. He's going off of the circuit, and Mubarak has definitely got the jump then on Joe Murphy. That is critical in this particular event because that could allow Enzo into the battle, who's trying to fight himself at the moment with Renz Thomason at the moment, but getting closer personal, and TTM have had the jump, and they've got both their drivers in front of Joe Van Bussel. Has had an absolute blinder of a start as well for CPI, looking sharp indeed as they go side by side potentially. Down in the inside line then, Joe Murphy will go, collide to the back, it's a collision, and there goes Mubarak into the wall. He got caught off guard by the conditions, and he's missed out big time. TTM are now down to only 1 at the front, but he will join at the back. Mubarak once again having to get used to minimal front wing.
And Renz Thomason and Joe Van Bussel nearly had it coming together as well. They might have it coming together through turn number 6. They just about get through there okay. Joe Van Bussel Booney's into second. He's done on a set of soft compound tyre. Renz Thomason there on a medium. Enzo on a medium. Seems like the mediums are definitely one to be on. Jeslo up into 6th on a set of softs. We could see Tony Reich and Dan side by side into the castle section. We are going to see side by side into the castle section as well between Tellez and Finley, I think, further down the field. But in the end, Enzo gets the start. TTM are absolutely nailing that 1-2. Right up until Mubarak went straight on in towards turn number 3. And turn number 3 is his absolute most hated corner on this track right now. He's going to absolutely hate that as Enzo leads the way from Joe Van Bussel in second, Renz in third. Given how they've started on a set of dry compound tyres, makes me think this rain is actually not going to affect the track.
And would you believe that Mubarak has, guess what, got no left or right end plate? Once again, it's deja vu for Mubarak. Turn 3, loses both of his end plates, and now he's going to go a long distance this race, and he's going to have to hope that potentially intermediate tyres are the tyres that he needs to be on at the moment. But the track conditions, yes, they're raining, but they're not significant at the moment. Jerry Van Bussel on the soft tyres, he is betting on potentially there being a intermediate stint, you'd have to say, but Enzo taking the high road and saying, no, I'm going to stick with the mediums just in case. So Jerry Van Bussel is going to have to hope that the rain does stop falling pretty quickly, as does Jeslar. CPI are betting on the wet conditions becoming enough for intermediates, you'd have to say.
Tony reaches into the pit lane. No front wing damage on the car. Inters on the car. Finley in for an Inter. Mubarak in for Inters. Samuel Barker.
Onto the heart.
I'm not sure if that's... I'm not sure if that's the right call, to be honest. Going on a set of hard compound and tyres. Jeff Van Bussel around the outside of Enzo for the race lead. Gets the job done. Through turn number 3. Oh. Enzo nearly makes contact with him, though, coming through turn number 4. Now the Frenchman tries to go all the way around the outside again. There's another one in the wall. Boy Lulo, I think, through in the wall. And Osku there. And Oksu there, right down in P16. Both of them in the wall through turn number 3. Enzo and Joe Van Bussel knocking 10 bales out of each other now in towards turn number 7. Trying to get the move done to the inside line. Boy Lulo has managed to get back going again. Joe Van Bussel, though, inside line through turn number 7. I was one team on the outside through turn number 8 into the castle section. In the end, Joe Van Bussel backed out, unlike what I did. Enzo leads the way, Joe Van Bussel second.
Yeah, soft tyre and medium tyres don't seem to have that much pace in between them. I'm keeping an eye out on the intermediate tyre at the moment. Is there any pace in the intermediate tyre versus the rest of them at the moment? Osku looking to try and keep in there, but touching the wall ever so slightly as Tony Reich against Osku. So I'm just keeping an eye out and see what that gap is. Gap is 3.9 and closing at the moment. So the intermediate tyre, is it the tyre to be on, I wonder? Or is it still in that sort of weird zone at the moment where we're deciding what the best tyre to be on? Is any tyre to be the best on? Why don't you just travel on the rims, they're saying? Because that might be more grip out there at the moment here. Sector 2 yellow flags with. Osku is out, speaking of which, and the safety car is out for the first of what we think is going to be many, James says. James Head says himself there'll be one of many. They reckon there'll be 5 safety cars. There's the first one. It's only lap 2 at 26. Are people going to be pitting for the intermediate tyre? Are they going to stay out, I wonder? We'll keep an eye out and see what Enzo does. He's leading the way. He's staying out then. Oh, we've got Joe Van Bussel. He's in. Renz is in. BRT, Joe Murphy is in. So Enzo thinks there's no point. I'm staying on the drives, but everyone else disagrees. It looks like inters are going on.
Yep, and I disagree. I totally agree with the guys coming in on a set of inters personally, because I've just seen the weather forecast. Renz Thomason's on a set of hards, by the way. Joe Van Bussel inters. who's on a set of inters? Joe Murphy on a set of inters. Have to find my bearings there slightly. Jeslar all into the pit lane. There's many drivers though going on a set of hard compound tyre. Renz, Volokonga, Matteo, and Fetty all on a set of hard compound tyres. What I hope Dirk doesn't mind me mentioning this. He just sent me actually the weather for this race. 4 blocks of rain followed by dry towards the end. So if this is 4 blocks of rain, you would imagine that we would be starting on a set of intermediate compound tyres because, well, the game's the game, Codemasters is Codemasters. They decide, you know what, go on a set of dry compound tyres and have done with it. The rain is affecting the track surface now, but it's falling light enough that it could still stay dry for a good period of this race. It's weird to begin off the race like this.
Yeah, very weird at the moment. The game seems to think that it's still time for dries. I would agree with them in this circumstance. I don't think there's enough spray being kicked up on circuit at the moment. So what's making me wonder, is the track temperature actually quite low as well, which means that the intermediate tyre is going to get warm enough, no problem at all, but there's not enough rain on the circuit to try and warrant the intermediate tyre, but it's so cold that the tyres can't really warm up, hence the reason why being on the soft tyre was probably the better tyre to be on. But the thing is, the majority of the drivers who have pitted have gone for the inter, but there are some people out there that think, no, this is not going to be wet enough, I'm going to the hard tyre and I'll see what happens. So Rens Thomason is the one leading out of those that have decided to pit to go onto a dry tyre. Tony Reish is the one that's led on the intermediate tyre. Of course, remember, Mubarak pitted 1 lap earlier as a result of having no end plates on his front wing after colliding with himself, getting into a collision into the wall at turn 3, which means that he's well down the field. And TTM were looking so strong at one point, but they've just not got it right here. And they reckon they told Enzo stay out, and he now leads from the front from FRT's Dan, from GT10's Kiki, and then off FRT Sam. So FRT have also gambled for this not going to an intermediate tyre. As it stands so far, we don't know if there's definitely don't know if DRS is going to be re-enabled, because of course they're under the safety car. But James, real mixed bag. I don't know what the right call is here. I still think if I were them, I think the dry tyre might just be the right tyre to be on, but it's such a fine line.
At the moment, I think the dries is probably the better tyre to be on, maybe by as much as about 2 seconds a lap. And I have this theory where the rain's obviously not falling aggressively out on track. You normally get that indication with what I like to call yellow blobs falling on the track surface, on the tarmac of the track. And if you see them, it is normally going to be indicative of intermediate compound tyre. At this moment in time, there's no such thing. There is absolutely none appearing on the track surface, which makes me think it is near borderline crossover period, but it's just dries, potentially, as I say, as much as 2 seconds. It's probably going to be more towards the second mark, I think, which really means drivers have got to be careful. Have the guys on the set of mediums done exactly the right thing and stayed out? Enzo, Dan, Kiki, Sam. Have the guys on the set of inters done the right thing, or have the guys on the set of hards done the right thing? And of course, with it turning dry towards the end of the race, maybe Rens Thomason, Volokongan, Matteo, Fetty, Ogwin and Samuel Barker, and I'm not blowing smoke up their backsides, but I'm going to say this right now, can they get to the end of the race from here?
Potentially, that's the question here. We've got Matthias actually in the chat as well, TF10. Thanks for being alongside 111 of you for this race as well. Big thanks to every single one of you saying, I did see on one of the drivers' streams that it was light rain for not long, so they don't believe that whether it's approximate or perfect, we don't know, but we've got suspicion here that we've got 4 blocks of rain before dries at the end, so this could be it. But either way, one thing that is the safety car. The safety car is coming into the end of this lap, so TTM Enzo will now be the de facto safety car, whilst everyone else is managed here, as people are starting to consider potentially intermediate tyres. We'll have to say, Enzo leading from the front on the medium tyre, so we'll see how Tony Reish, Joey Van Bussel and Joe Murphy do on the intermediate tyre versus everyone else around them, especially the likes of Rens Thomason on the hard tyre, which will be so difficult to warm up in these conditions. That is for certain. Those hard tyres will feel like they're going to be skating on ice, to be honest with you, as the drivers will be getting themselves ready. When is TTM Enzo going to go? He weaves from left to right and left again again, to right again, to try and get as much heat as he can into these very fresh medium tyres. You have to be honest here. We've not done that much racing here, as he will get himself going, and he has gone here. Has he caught FRT Dan napping? I don't think he has. The Williams looking like to get close here, as we do go green again here in Azerbaijan. Then going through into turn 1, how are the dry tyres going to look? I will say they're not looking too bad, but are the intermediates quicker? I would argue they certainly are. Tony Reich immediately getting the jump on 2 medium tyre runners. Joe Van Bussel also getting the jump on FRT Sam. Here we go.
Oh, and Sam nearly lost it there, coming off the straight, and Joe Murphy now going to try and back that up to the inside line in towards turn number 3. Could get Helter Skelter in behind. Jezlo and Kiki going side by side as well. Joe Murphy through on Sam. As I say, intermediate compound tyres for now are quicker. As I say, around about this second period, as long as Tony Reich can get out of Dan, can get past him straight away, which he's going to maybe take the inside line of turn number 5. Dan doesn't recognise that he's there, and he ends up spinning him out, and Dan there drops down to 5th position. Tony Reich there in 2nd. One way to get a move done in the end, but in the end, Dan should have recognised that he's there. Instead of cutting him up at the pass, Tony Reich there makes contact with him, but I can already tell intermediate compound tyres are quicker, probably by as much as about a second right now. Tony Reich just flying it through here, but again, it is still not wet enough for intermediate compound tyres really to be used. It is crossover period. This race is absolutely insane running on lap 5.
Yeah, the medium tyre runners will be absolutely seething, and the hard tyre runners will also be seething as well, because they're falling off a cliff as Joe Murphy trying to get close to Joe Van Bussel. We're on board with Tony Reich at the moment, looking like he wants to get that moved on Enzo, and Enzo very, very quickly indeed. TTM's race was suddenly looking really good, has now gone to complete hell with the likes of Mubarak down in 18th on the wrong tyre, Enzo in 1st on the wrong tyre. So this is just going from bad to worse for TTM, unfortunately, as it looks like Tony Reich and TF10 are going to take the lead of this race very quickly. He'll weave to the left, he'll weave to the right to try and hold him off, but in the end it's going to be all done and dusted, as there goes TF10's Tony Reich, as will Joe Van Bussel as well, looking to get the double overtake done, and they'll go side by side as Enzo is trying to defend it on the medium tyres. A valiant effort. DRS has been enabled, so this apparently the tyres seem to best size to be on apparently are the dries, but I beg to differ, to say the least. Joe Murphy trying to get it done, Joe Van Bussel dealing with that one so well to take the lead of this race. BRT's Joe Murphy gets the move done on Enzo. He's now off of the podium, and now it's going to be maintaining the gap between these 3 drivers as they get closer personal. Tony Reich trying to get that effort done on Joe Van Bussel, trying to get the revenge on the double overtake from the McLaren, but in the end stays in the lead.
Yep, definitely so. And look at the gap now between Jezlo and Dan. If that is not indicated potentially of Dan either picking up damage or the Inters being quicker, then I don't know what is. And I know Lawrence there is going to probably disagree with that in the chat, as Renz Thomason there in 6th, Dan there in 7th, dropping down the field. Renz doesn't look too bad on the sort of hard compound tyres, to be fair. Now coming to the right-hand turn number 7, gap is going out. It's still Inters, I think, favouring right now, but with it being DRS enabled, the game still thinks it is dries, that it is still raining lightly, and in fact, actually, is the rain beginning to stop out on track? Coming to the left-hand of turn 13, I'm on board with Dan.
I agree.
Is the rain beginning to fall? It's heavier at this part of the track, but down up the top of the hill, through 12 and 13, it was very, very light there. And at this moment in time, is this rain beginning to ease off? There's a send from Jordan to the inside line. Wants to try and dive it to the inside line. The ex-CPI man gets the job done. EVE going to double up as well. I think Finley going to move to the inside line on Dan. Job done as well. Tooney's into 8th. Dan there in 9th as now Joe Murphy sets aside on Tony Reich.
Gap 2.5 seconds then between Enzo and Joe Murphy. Make that now just a bit under a 10th versus Jezlar, as Jezlar gets the move done. As Joe Van Bussel sets the fastest lap of this race on the intermediate tyre. I do agree. I do think that the conditions are starting to lighten them up now. So is the rain now starting to ease off a little bit? And is that going to allow potentially the medium and the hard tyre runners to engage in more racing and start to come back into play here? The likes of FRT Dan will be seething here and trying to get himself, keeps himself in touching distance with the intermediate tyres. Renz Thomason and Enzo similarly. But here it is here at the moment. The top 4 are all on the intermediate tyre. They're holding their own. Forgive the fact it says safety car in the top left-hand corner. It's because we have did have a safety car. That is a glitch, unfortunately, with console. The reason why is because Kiki has gone for a spin and he's lost all of his front wing at all the front wing on the Haas, and that has put quite a big chunk of debris off the racing lines. We're not expecting a safety car for that one as they find... Oh, we've got a pile-up! We've got a big pile-up with Mubarak, Samuel Barker, Boya Lulu, and looks like Volakongan, and the virtual safety car has come out as a result of that one. That was one hell of a mess, a helter-skelter of cars all just wrapped up inside each other, and that has just resulted in a virtual safety car as a result. Real mixed bag happening there for 15th, 16th, and 17th.
Boylilo damage, Volakongan damage, Mubarak damage, Samuel Barker got damage as well. No, Samuel Barker's actually got away with that scot-free. It is a VSE out on track. I didn't see what happened there, to be honest. I'm sure the guys in the stream and you, Joss, will probably know more than me. Jevan Bossel, though, out in front. Tony Rich in second, Joe Murphy in third. I was focused on the front three because they've dropped Jeslar now in fourth. 1.5 seconds now the gap. TTM ends 11th, 5th. Still not medium compound tyres to be on at this moment in time. The rain is beginning to try and through as Samuel Barker picks up a drive-through penalty. Back to green flag racing. Tony Reich is already on the back of Jevan Bossel. 2 ex-PC drivers now going at it against possibly one of Xbox's finest young men, as now Joe Murphy set the sights on the back of Tony Reich. Tony Reich there set the sights on the back of Jevan Bossel. I don't think anything's going to happen in towards turn number 1. And the Frenchman hangs back off the Dutchman, but Jevan Bossel lead. Tony Reich in second, Joe Murphy there in third. The front three, 2.2 now clear of Jeslar.
Oh, wow, the medium tyres looking so scarce. I'm surprised TTM haven't pitted Enzo, to get him onto the intermediate tyre, because he is really skating around here. It was 2.3 going through turn 1. It's 3.2 going out of turn 2 as Joe Murphy gets the move done on Tony Reich, and I'm expecting surely EVE's Finlay is going to get this move done very nicely and very nice and cool and nice and easy versus Top Tier Motorsports Enzo, and what is turning out to be a really, really good run of form at the moment for the Aversio Racing team in Malta. Tales trying to close down the gap as well for the Spanish team TF10, trying to get his move then done on Enzo. They are hoping that the rain is going to stop falling, and it's going to stop falling fast here, because at the moment Enzo is hemorrhaging time, as well as Rens Thomason down as well. Oh, look at squeezing him into the wall. Enzo is fighting hard, but he's just going to drift around the corners.
Yep, he is, and he shuts the door on the back of Tales. Tales goes for the move in the inside of Castle section. I thought he was going to pull off me there. I've only been watching what I was doing around this track. 7 on the back of Enzo. It is intermediate compound tyres, you can tell. Enzo's gone. There goes Tales, inside line, job done. Jordan surely going to follow through as well, maybe in towards 14 and 15. He is on the back, looking to the outside line, might be squeezed against the wall here by Enzo. In the end, doesn't work. The rain is still beginning to ease off out on track. I will disagree, by the way, with what Hugo was saying out on in the comment section there about Jevan Bossel. Jevan Bossel is a PSGL, PSF1 champion at the end of the day, but he's also the man that caused an absolute dive to the inside line in Las Vegas in season number 4. So Jevan Bossel, he's not a clean driver, but he's certainly clean in this race. Joe Murphy set his sights on him down in towards turn number 1. Jevan Bossel there in second, Tony Reich there in third. Tony Reich at this moment in time looking pretty strong. Jevan Bossel, I'll be honest, though, is looking stronger of the three, as the rain...
Ooh.
Has it stopped? I think it has. The rain has now stopped that on track.
Yeah, rain has now stopped. That might invite some of the cooler, the dry tyre compound of drivers back into the mix here. On board with Rens Thomason on the hard tyres at the moment, as he's actually getting pretty close here to the likes of Enzo on the medium tyre now. Enzo really could do with not losing this position. Oh, he's flying. Rens Thomason's flying, gets a double overtake on the straight. Is he going to get squeezed? Potentially he will. Oh, it's going to be close versus Jordan. They're very well held and very well behaved between the Aston Martin and the Mercedes, but in the end ET8 lose out versus Rens Thomason. The drives are suddenly switching back on very quickly here, and I'm wondering if the top 7 are now looking at them and thinking, oh dear, have we made a mistake?
Jordan was completely sideways there coming through turn number 5. Rens Thomason, not yet, I've got to say, on the back of the intermediate. It's still slightly inters favouring more than the dries, but the dries now begin to favour on. Rens Thomason in particular, the one to watch out for. There's contact in the wall. Tales there hits the wall, gets, I think, left side end plate damage on the car. If I'm not mistaken, Rens tried to hang it all the way around the outside on Jordan. He's there on the inside line, but in the end, Rens is ahead. Rens through, he's into 7th. Enzo there, but the tyres begin to come into play. The sun trying to break through the clouds as well all of a sudden. Look the inside line, maybe for the switch back out of 15, gets a phenomenal run down the hill. Will the Frenchman try and get the move done down in towards 16? Got to be elbows out, and in the end, that is poor from both ends of how you look at that. Jordan good enough ends up at the pass, and Enzo attempting for that move. Not for my liking. As Joe Murphy is in, Jevan Bossel stays out.
Here comes then a move for Rens Thomason. You did say that this is the man that you're the fastest man on console at the moment. Well, he's certainly showing it on the hard tyre. Gets the move done on Tales. Tales enters the pit lane. They're not happy. Enzo is in. Dan is also in. Getting off the medium tyres that they started on. Matteo, fastest lap of this race so far. Guess what? The hard tyres and the dry tyres suddenly becoming the best tyres to be on at the moment. So surely then moving on to the intermediate tyre was not the right choice here. I'd have to argue. Joe Van Bussel and Jordan have both stayed out on the intermediate tyre, by the way. I'm not sure exactly as to why, because definitely the dry tyre is the best tyre to be on, and suddenly CPI strategy is looking a little bit weak.
Definitely so. Rens Thomason, by the way, 9.8, 9.9. Gap is closing. This will be about a 2-second gain, I think, this lap around for Rens Thomason on the back of Joe Van Bussel. It now brings Rens, Matteo, Feddy into play potentially for the race win. Ogween on the back of Jordan again, coming to the right-hand of turn number 6, trying to look for the move maybe in towards turn number 7. Don't think he'll go for the move down here unless he's an absolute mad one down the inside line. Through turn 7, doesn't go for the move. Joe Van Bussel leads the way. Rens Thomason in second, Matteo there in third. Tyres are switching on completely. The set of hards potentially, the set of dries certainly to be on. Set of hards right now to be on for Rens Thomason. He is looking very, very strong in this race. And there's the yellow flag, there's a crash in the castle, and that's Finley out in the castle section. That saved Joe Van Bussel.
That has saved Jerry Van Bussel and saved Jordan big time in this one. They'll at least get some time recovered, but they will still lose out, surely. In fact, Jerry Van Bussel, 11 seconds is the gap between him and Rens Thomason. ET8 are always there, aren't they? When the strategy calls, when there's a little bit of a mixed bag. I don't know what it is about ET8, but they are always there. And Rens Thomason and Arthur Matteo at the moment are leading the way. The question is, will they get the jump on Jerry Van Bussel whilst they've got a delta to follow? He now jumps straight into the pit lane, no doubt. Get off of these intermediate tyres. I'm assuming a set of hards. He might go for a set of mediums, but it will be a bit of a push. But I'm surely it's going to be a set of hards. It is a set of hards for the CPI McLaren, who will now leave the pit lane as Rens Thomason and Matteo will get the jump. Fede will also get the jump as well. Will Ogween also get it? Will Joe Murphy also get it? Pretty critical for Joe Murphy to get this one done as well. It is going to be close versus Joe Murphy, but Joe Murphy will get the jump. In fact, Tony Reish will be the one who gets jumper in the end. Adheres to the safety car line, and Jerry Van Bussel will return in 6th place. So again, Jerry Van Bussel and CPI saved by the second safety car of the day. But now we were saying, is it advantage BRT? Isn't it advantage for TTM? No, it's advantage ET8.
It is advantage ET8, but, and there's a big but in this, will those tyres get to the end of the race? I have seen 22, 23 laps get to the end of the race before on about 75, 80% tyre wear, so they can get to the end. ET8 are very good in terms of tyre conserving, and I'm sure Rens Thomason and Matteo will be working out that strategy, how to try and get those tyres towards the end of the race. My reckoning, though, is those guys are going to be falling over each other in front. Joe Murphy, Joe Van Bussel, Tony Reish, all in that gap. Everyone in the fresh set of hards are going to try and make their way through the field, especially Joe Murphy, Joe Van Bussel, Tony Reish. They are the 3 to watch out for now in this race. They're 5th, 6th and 7th, directly behind the first group, as I'm going to call it out on track. Those guys still on the set of hard compound tyres. As I say, they will probably get to the end of the race. It's just whether or not, though, they can actually manage that on this game cycle and with this tyre wear and potentially with even more changeable conditions and whatnot out on track. But from my perspective, and I'm wrong on the best of occasions, so don't take me lightly, Joe Murphy, Joe Van Bussel, Tony Reish will be some form of your top 3, given how this race might pan out.
That's the call that James is making, and let me know what you think in the chats at the moment as this race is start coming to just a little bit under halfway now, with the second safety car now out. Everyone just getting to the back of the queue, returning to a considerably slow speed. The track conditions out there are best described as mildly moist, but enough for the dry tyres to just work, and of course that means the track conditions are quite cool out there, so the hard tyres are going to be hard to warm up here. That might invite the likes of Valakongan, potentially Samuel Barker back in 18th place to potentially get the jump on a few of the hard tyre runners, but so far advantage to those on the hard tyres at the moment, that's for certain. But you mentioned about whether the hard tyres will go the distance. Of course, behind the safety car, a couple of safety car stints is going to allow those in the front 4 who were pitted earlier on for the hard tyres to potentially go the distance, but if not, advantage falls well back in favour of the likes of BRT's Joe Murphy. You've seen something in the background.
Volokongans came into the pit lane, and I don't think he's realised he's been pit onto an old set of hard compound of tyres. The worst possible thing for Team Shazoo to happen right now. Ogwin already there, of course. Where is he? He's in 4th position. I thought he was further down the field. Ogwin's there in 4th. Volakonga now in 18th. It's now a complete role reversal to what I mentioned earlier on. Ogwin being the weaker driver compared to the 2. Volakonga will be, and Team Shazoo will be absolutely wishing above hope that he could have been put on a fresh set of hards. He is not. He's on an old set of hards. That means he's got no chance against Samuel Barker, no chance against Kiki. Ideally, he needs another VSC to really help him along in this race, and I feel very, very sorry for him, because I was about to say he might get to the end of those medium compound tyres and then he decided to bail and come in the pit lane, and then that's happened. So it's not Volakongan's day, it's not Team Shazoo's day right now.
Appreciate that it's a rule within the rule book that he's not allowed to, stay out or be slow to enforce a safety car to go round again. It is a specific rule in the rule book not to manipulate the race in such a manner, but Volakongan could have easily chucked out there and said, "Oh, I've got pedal failure. Oh, my acceleration pedal's not working." But he elected to say, "No, I'm on the hard tyres. They're 8 laps old. That's the game. That's the cards that have been dealt for me. I'm just going to get on with it." So fair play to Volakongan for that one. Safety car is coming in at the end of this lap. Of course, Rens Thomason will now be the de facto safety car as the drivers will, I think, very aggressively try to get temperature into their hard tyres at the moment, except Samuel Barker on the medium tyre. He'll try and go the distance if he can, but I think it will be a bit of a push. Fire Marshal to the right, by the way, if you're wondering what the F is right there. Not for any person like Volakongan who pitted onto the old hard tyre. Rens Thomason then going to be warming those tyres up as quick as he possibly can. The safety car has just entered the pit lane right now, so of course that will allow the full freedom of the acceleration pedal now for the Aston Martin. He will just count down Matteo, I'm sure, to make sure that ET8 both get it done. There goes Rens Thomason. He's not caught Matteo napping. They've worked with each other, but unfortunately they've not caught Fede napping either. TRT need these points. We go green again here in Azerbaijan, and Fede gets a real jump as well going into the corner. Is he going to go for the switchback potentially? I'm not sure. Joe Murphy and Jerry Van Bussel getting into their own little scrap at the moment as Jordan and FRT Dan get into mix. Tyler's also mixing as well, as we're starting to get a few people mixed up in the midfield at the moment as well. It is a little bit messy out there. Forgive the safety car thing at the top left hand corner. It is not. It's a HUD issue at the moment with the console. Here he comes then into turn 3, then going side by side. Will Jeslar, TTM's Enzo trying to get the jump here. Is he going to go for the dive down the inside? No, but getting into the wing mirror of the McLaren in this one here. Joe Murphy leading the way. Of course, those that are going to definitely go to the end on this one tried to battle it out with Ogwin, but Ogwin able to hold on, no issue at all. In fact, he's actually putting Fede under a little bit of under the cushion as well, as we've got Enzo and Tony getting into a bit of a scrap at TTM. Enzo getting it around the outside. Tony will go to try and hold on. They're going to go side by side. Who's going to be the one that's going to blink on this one? Enzo elects not to blink and not challenge Tony into that one, and he'll stay in P8.
And Joe Murphy and Ogwin just nearly did what I did around this track and go side by side through the castle section. He was half alongside and he nearly managed it, but in the end had to pull out the gap, and now Ogwin back in P4. Oh. Joe Murphy down P5. Let's talk about what E10 are trying to do right now. Rens Thomason's escaping up the road. Matteo has now been is a sacrificial lamb out on track. E10 are managing this for Rens Thomason's benefit and for him to get the gap out on track. It's Matteo's job now to hold everyone up in behind, especially Fede and Ogwin. Hold Joe Murphy, hold Jerry Van Bussel, hold Tony Reich. Speaking of which, there's Jerry Van Bussel on the right-hand side of the track, now coming down the straight, in towards turn number 1 once again. He is going to look on the back of Fede, on the back of Matteo, on the back of Ogwin. Fede through into second, Matteo there in third, Ogwin there in fourth. That remain as they are. He's a sacrificial lamb tonight, the Italian stallion Matteo, but he has done a great job. Rens Thomason 3.4 seconds clear over Fede. They're all going to fall over each other. This race is now Rens Thomason's.
Yeah, well played to Matteo though, doing the strategy perfectly, letting him overtake going into turn 1, and then of course he'll have DRS going through into turn 3, and once again Matteo takes second place out of the hands of the team that he doesn't really want to lose points from in Ferrari, but of course the Italian stallion himself holding on for P2, and he'll then try and keep Matteo. Oh, Jerry Van Bussel going for the dive bomb down the inside line, catches Ogwin off napping, nearly catches Fede off napping as well. Is he going to go for that now? He's chopped off immediately, says no, you can't have that position, that's mine, says Fede to Jerry Van Bussel. Enzo potentially getting in there as well. Enzo losing a couple of positions as well. Joe Murphy holding on for P5, Ogwin up to P6, then we got Tony Reich down in P7 at the moment, so Ogwin losing positions here. The old hard tyres not working very well at the moment for the Shizou man, and once again Shizou dropping points. The championship defenders really struggling. Enzo trying to get closer to Tony Reich in this occasion. Remember, no safety car. It says on the top left is a safety car. That is a glitch with Xbox. They are racing at the moment here in Azerbaijan. Joe Murphy trying his hardest to get up there, potentially with Joe Van Bossel, went for that dive bomb. Potentially CPI might have a student inquiry on their hands for that dive. That was a bit of a rash one, but it did work.
It did work indeed, and that's what Joe Van Bossel can do. He can get himself into a scenario. That's why I mentioned Las Vegas a little bit early on as well. It's pretty much very similar to that. It's now Matteo and Freddy get the block on maybe down towards turn number 1. Joe Van Bossel on the back of Matteo, closing in quick. The PSGL PSF1 champion against the former PSF1 champion in the move. In the end, Joe Van Bossel gets the move done, but was that a bit of carbon fibre coming off on Matteo's car? I think it was. Is he missing his right side plate damage on that car? I'm just trying to zoom in and have a very closer look. He has still got it. So he has still got the right side plate. I thought it was carbon fibre flying off. Joe Van Bossel, though, Matteo just hanging around the outside of turn number 3. Joe Van Bossel hits the inside wall. Joe Murphy gets the up and under on both of them. Joe Murphy doing his into third.
Yeah, great move from Joe Murphy there. Joe Van Bossel colliding into the wall, and that obviously allowed lost Matteo speed as well, because of course he had to try and avoid the impending hit from the McLaren, but that's allowed BRT's Joe Murphy now to get potentially closer to Fede. But in this one, Matteo, I'm not entirely sure on ETA strategy, and I would have hoped that Rens Thomason potentially would have carried Matteo a little bit instead of leaving him for dust, because it's allowed Rens Thomason to get the gap. The question is, will he be able to hold on these old hard tyres versus BRT's Joe Murphy and Joe Van Bossel on these fresh hard tyres that are looking so sharp? The next question is though, can they get past Fede?
Yeah, and in the end, Hugo being proved wrong, I think, with Joe Van Bossel's actions out on track. This is why we know him too well from PlayStation. Rens leads the way, Fede in second, Joe Murphy in third. Fede, though, Joe Murphy even on the back of Fede, really pushing the weave there from Joe Murphy, I think, says it all. Get a move on. We are in this together. We want to try and catch back up to Rens Thomason in the race state, but they can't because it's 5.8 seconds. It's 5.9 all of a sudden very soon. Joe Murphy on the back of Fede, looking maybe for the move down in towards turn 1. He's going to hold off the back. He's got 8% of ERS. Fede at the minute on 13. Joe Van Bossel on 17. Everyone's working up their ERS for an absolute treat. There's moves are going on further down the field. Dan, Volakonga and Mubarak all side by side down the straight towards turn 1. Mubarak there. Did he break on a straight? There from Mubarak. I've not been too awkward on him, but that was a bit of a move on the break there from Mubarak.
Here comes
in the
Joe
end,
Murphy against Fede, though. Sorry to interrupt there, James. It looks like the move is going to be done and dusted. Joe Murphy electing that turn 3 is going to be the spot for me, and he gets the move done against Rens Thomason. Sorry, James.
Yeah, definitely so. Rens Thomason leading the way, Joe Murphy second, Fede in third. I was on about Mubarak there, further down the field. I thought he broke on a straight, very slightly, down in towards turn number 1. Didn't cause any damage or anything, but just a little bit questionable, I've got to be honest, from the TTM, man. TTM are in the best seat in the house, quite literally, with Enzo further up the field there in 7th, but Rens there leading the way from Joe Murphy in 2nd, Fede there in 3rd, Joe Van Bossel there currently in 4th position. Rens at 5.4 second, 5.3, gap beginning to come down. This is exactly what Joe Murphy needs, but has the damage already been done in this race with that gap being as extensive as it is?
The situation for Matteo at the moment, of course, is that he was the sacrificial lamb as you made the call to try and extend that gap between Rens Thomason, Joe Murphy, Fede and the rest of the field. He's now down in 5th on old hard tyres, but he's now in the DRS train. Now, if there's any person that you're going to ask to look after your tyres, as well as be a sacrificial lamb and potentially get a podium for your team, it is a championship winner in our Matteo. The question is, will Matteo be able to keep close with the likes of Jerry Van Bussel, or will he get that move done against Fede? And in fact, he's getting closer and closer to Joe Murphy, but elects in the end not to go for that move. That McLaren is looking so rapid on a straight.
Yep, definitely so. Rens leading the way, 5.6 seconds. That McLaren, though, as you mentioned, Jerry Van Bussel is very quick down the straight. There was a DNF through turn number 1.
Safety
and that's
car.
a safety car again. It's Jordan that is out of the race. Through turn number 1, was fighting in the mid-pack with the likes of Dan, Volakongan and Ogween, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So he's out of the race. Rens, though, now out on top from Joe Murphy in 2nd, Jerry Van Bussel there in 3rd. third safety car of the night. Am I missing count there?
Third safety car of the night of 5 that you predicted here, and actually it might be on target at the moment. If it keeps in here, there's still time for potentially 5 safety cars, as James Head himself has decided to make the call. Will he be further Mystic James in this one? Keep an eye out on the clock, because it is lap 17 of 26 as people will be getting themselves ready and tuned into I'm a Celebrity tonight. We're more interested in all of these cars flying away, and no widgety grubs here around Azerbaijan, because these drivers are flying around this circuit but are getting impeded and held by a safety car. And who else has been impeded big time is ET8. Their strategy has completely fallen off a cliff now. What will be a benefit to them is the fact that Rens Thomason and Matteo have got enough of a gap that they can double stack their drivers without any issue. So I would expect at least there to be an advantage for the likes of Matteo potentially if they decide to go onto a medium tyre to the end of this race. We'll see then if Rens Thomason does elect to come in here. He's just heading around the final couple of corners. Will the Aston Martin come into the pit lane and set the precedent, or will he stay on the hards? I would expect surely he's got to take advantage and get off of those hard tyres. Is he going to do it? Let's see. He's going down to the inside line. It looks very much as if he's going to do so. He's left of the white line. He's coming in. Will Joe Murphy and Joe Van Bussel elect to do so as well, despite the fact that they've got the advantage? No, they're electing not to. Fede and Matteo is coming in. Fede, though, is still determined to go to the end on these hard tyres. Fair play to the TRT man.
Yeah, he feels confident on that set of hard compound tyres. May feel that potentially there's going to be something coming. Matteo's held up very slightly coming into the pit lane. His pit crew is actually not ready for him, and he loses about a second and a half in the pit lane. Alpine's double stacking as well. Bad news for Team Jizu, because there is Volakongan, I think, getting double stacked by Ogween. Ogween, they're coming out in 10th. Matteo, they're down in 11th. Not too bad, honestly, in terms of how this complexion of the race is going to change. Rens Thomason, all of a sudden, is once again on the best tyres. It's just whether or not he can get through the 6 drivers that's in front. Especially the likes of Joe Murphy, Joe Van Bussel, who's on a set of hards. They can definitely manage that to the end. If you're Fede, however, if you're Kiki, however, you may not necessarily get to the end. I think Kiki's fine. Fede maybe not so much. He's there in third, there in the Ferrari. Rens Thomason, though, he is the quickest man right now out on track. He definitely was proving that with that great strategy that ET8 had proved. Unfortunately, the fault line was in all of that where there was going to be another safety car. And that other safety car has found ET8's strategy completely out, because now Matteo's in 11th, Rens is in 7th. All of that hard work that they did off that second safety car is unfortunate. Jordan, by the way, posting in the Discord, race-ending contact, apparently hitting the wall coming on the right-hand side through turn number 1. His wheel, unfortunately, with the glitch barrier that there is on the right-hand side, getting caught off the wheel, and that is why he's at the race.
Not to sound brutal, but a race-ending contact, well, we know you're out of the race. Sorry, Jordan, but that's the situation. EVE as well. That is a massive drop of points for EVE, because they were looking really sharp and really quick tonight. They look good in the sprint, but in the race, it's just completely fallen out for them, and the Maltese team will be dropping points to FRT through Dan at the moment in 12th place, which, again, is the last thing that they need. Luke saying in the chat, and this is something I wanted to bring up, yeah, we're saying that this is a strategy that potentially has cost ETA big time with the likes of Rens Thomason, but now advantage on strategy to him. Fresh medium tyres versus everyone else on a hard tyre that, yeah, will be a little bit quicker to warm up, but it still won't be particularly fast. Yeah, the sun has just started to come out though, so the track conditions will start to get a little bit warmer out there, but the medium tyre is definitely the tyre to be on now for the rest of this race. The question is, will Rens Thomason be able to make his way through the gap before Joe Murphy, Joe Van Bussel and Fede and the likes of Enzo as well potentially sort of start to steer away on that hard tyre. Fede though, really trying to push those 16 lap old hard tyres. Yes, he's had 3 safety cars behind them, but will they go the distance, James, I wonder? 7 laps to go.
Yeah, 7 laps to go. I was on board with Rens there, and I suddenly thought it was starting to rain again, but it's not. Don't worry. Don't come at me in the chat. It is not raining there. It is beautiful blue skies and sunshine pretty much now peering through the cloud cover that there is over here at Baku City Circuit. Rens Thomason there in something that you mentioned has got the quicker tyres. Whether or not, though, well, you can get those tyres up to temperature. It's just whether or not he can get through the likes of Kiki, especially Kiki, I think, initially, but the likes of Jesla, Enzo, who can get his elbows out. We've already seen at this race from the TTM man's perspective. It's whether or not Rens can get those tyres up to temp and then find his way through what I could call the traffic, because they are going to be on the slower tyres. Joe Murphy and Joe Van Bussel have got the head of the race. We saw in the sprint, though, paying out to be P1 is not the place to be. Joe Murphy's currently in P1. What did he do? Ended up losing the race. Joe Van Bussel there in second, neatly took full advantage of that, finished on the podium in the end, I think, in that race. Endo in the end took that race win. He's there in fourth. So again, it's leaps and roundabouts. You do not want to be first going on to the final lap of the race here, especially with that long, withering run down the straight. There was a bit of carbon fibre coming through the castle section there. Did anybody lose a front wing end plate, or was that just off an old car and maybe off Jordan crashing in the castle section? Interesting. I think everyone's fine. Just saw a bit of carbon fibre in the castle section there.
Yeah, a little bit. Maybe I'm not so sure on that one. One thing is for certain is that at the moment it looks like TRT have sent Sam on a little bit of a school trip and said, yes, Sam, you can have soft tyres if you want from the gift shop. I'm not entirely sure why they've decided to put soft tyres on, because they will not go the distance. 7 laps around here, maybe they will, but it would be a bit of a push, and I think they'll definitely find a cliff edge at some point, will Sam. Back at the front, though, now for the third time, the front leader, the BRT's Joe Murphy, will now be the de facto safety car as he now just goes around the final couple of corners to get himself ready. He's very keen to get going here at the moment. He won't be given the full green light to go because the safety car's nowhere even near the pit lane at the moment, so he'll be weaving those tyres left and right, try and get them as warm as he possibly can, especially the likes of Rens Thomason will be flying at the beginning of this lap here, so we'll see when he decides to go. He's leaving everyone for dust. The question is, when is he going to go? Is he going to catch him napping as he goes left and right, left and right? Is he going to catch the CPI manager Van Bussel napping? He's leaving it very late indeed as he will continue to leave it down here as he does go, and he has caught Jerry Van Bussel napping a little bit here, and here we go, side by side, Enzo and Fede. Enzo has actually been gone a little bit too soon here as we go green again here in Azerbaijan. Enzo gets the jump on Fede. Jeslar trying to get in there as well. Remember, these are old hard tyres for Fede as well, so he's going to be losing out big time. Question is how quickly is Rens Thomason going to get in the mix on these medium tyres? They're fresh, they're new, and they're so grippy as he gets closer and closer here to the McLaren of Jeslar, but he can't get the move done because he caught going through turn 2 as there's still people at the back trying to warm their tyres up. Rens Thomason electing not to go for the move too early, going through turn 3, James.
Yeah, but it's the worst possible thing because Fede's now losing time to the front 3. They're on better tyres than Fede. Fede's now a mobile chicane right literally in towards turn number 5, and Rens Thomason has got nowhere to go at this stage. He is losing time hand over fist. He has to stay in there. He has to go for the move now on Jeslar if he wants to try and risk it on the back of Fede. Maybe in towards turn 15. Rens Thomason to the inside line. Just about a wingtips ahead. Jeslar shooting off the hang. Yes, he's in the wall.
Come on! Come on!
Rens Thomason in the wall. It's mirrors of what I did around here. He held it to the outside line, and in the end, Rens Thomason, I would argue, was just a wing tip ahead of that car. I think, has he got away with front wing damage?
Major front wing damage, unfortunately, on the right-hand side for him now. Left-hand side as we go on board with Tony looking backwards. That means Rens Thomason's race is now gone completely arse overhead at the moment, to put it bluntly, because it's now just completely not going to be the race that he was looking for after that collision with Jeslar. Jeslar tried his hardest to hold on, and you'd have to argue perhaps the defence was just a little bit aggressive, but you don't go side by side through Castle, and that has allowed TF10's Tony Reich to get into the mix here. Is Rens Thomason going to pit? He's not. He's going to try and hang it out. I'm not entirely sure as to why, because his race is now over and done with. Question, how quickly is Tony Reich going to get to the front 4? How quickly is he going to get past Fede? And then how quickly is it going to get onto the podium?
At this moment in time, I don't think he will get past, because Jeslar's looking quite strong ahead of him. Fede is looking strong, albeit on, 7 lap older tyres than Jeslar. How many older lap tyres? 15, I think, compared to Tony Reich, who is there on the back. He has got nowhere to go at this stage, but there's all sorts of carnage now kicking off. Rens Thomason again around the outside on Kiki this time. Kiki keeps it in there. Nearly the other E8 man and Matteo in the wall coming through turn number 4. Now through turn number 5, it's getting very aggressive in the mid-pack. Tales to the inside on Mogween as well. Nearly pushed that into the wall. Let's do Matteo, let's do back. Goes up with Sam Barker as well, right in behind for TRT. Joe Murphy leading the way though, Joe Van Bussel second, Enzo on third. Back to that incident very quickly. You could see it from both angles. Rens Thomason I was on board with was just ahead, going on the outside line. Jeslar was on the inside line. Normally, common purpose is to back out if you're on the outside line. I think, personally, fault lies there with Rens Thomason more than it does with Jeslar.
Well, I think logic tells me in my head that Rens Thomason was always going to be the faster driver, so of course Jeslar was never going to really give him space, because of course he's racing with him despite being on the worst tyre. So if I was Rens Thomason, I wouldn't have gone for the move. I'd have just backed out and took him down on the straight, perhaps going down the back straight. But end of the day, I'm not the one that's racing. I'm the one screaming down a microphone. Mubarak, hello Mubarak. First time we've seen you in a while. He's getting closer personal. Jerry Van Bussel replacing with TTM's Enzo. Double overtake for Mubarak as he gets the move done, going through into turn 1 and now up into 8th place, finally into the top 10, Mubarak.
Yeah, finally into the top 10. He's recovering very well in this race. He's got Rens Thomason, the stricken Aston Martin ahead. Tony Riesel gets a phenomenal run on the back of Jeslar, just ahead of this. It could be 3 wide down towards turn number 3. There he goes. Double overtake. Tony Riesel. How do you like them apples? Inside line, beautiful move by Tony Riesel. That's why he waited. That's how you complete a move in Azerbaijan. Rens Thomason take notes. Tony Riesel doing he's into 4th.
Jeslar getting a move done around the outside of Fede to hold on to P5, so good effort from the McLaren, but Tony Riesel actually managed that really well. He squeezed the Jeslar into the back of Fede, and Jeslar was trying to push him potentially down the main straight, but in the end, the McLaren just had to concede. It's not going to happen. Gets the move done around Fede to keep P5, but Tony Riesel now up to P4 and trying to close down on the CPI man of Jerry Van Bussel, gap 1.8, so he will not get DRS, but the question is will the hard tyre runners be able to just hold on to DRS and potentially carry the likes of Tony Riesel? While this is all happening, Rens Thomason gets the move done on P7, and I'm trying to figure out what's happening as Fede is really struggling out there. Rens Thomason, despite having the major front wing damage, still in 6th place at the moment and trying to hold on. Of course, with that wing damage, it does mean that he will be significantly faster on the straights, you'd have to say, because of course the drag is reduced on the Aston Martin.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Fede, by the way, had damage there on the car. I don't think he has, not least visual damage on the car. But he certainly made a mistake coming at the top of the hill there through turn number 12. I think the likes of Rens Thomas and Mubarak all green through, and now he is struggling on those center hole compound tyres. Kiki up next to overtake him down the straight in towards turn number 1. It will be Matteo could get the double as well, potentially down in towards turn number 3. On the back of these two, down in towards turn 1 we go. Kiki gets the move done on Fede, very easily done indeed. Joe Murphy leading the way, Enzo 2nd. Jerry Van Bussel there in 3rd. Will begin to get tactical, bring Tony Riesel completely into play as well. The Frenchman, mistake there, I think, by Fede on the inside line. Not sure if contact with the wall. Samuel Barker now looking to the inside line, but in the end, Samuel Barker doesn't want to risk it for the move. TRT not having communication, that seems. Fede now to the inside line, tries to hang on in there, doesn't. Matteo through and he's into 10th. Fede there, let's do Samuel Barker, let's do his teammate, could let do Volokongan as well. He's got careful, both of them get caught in contact. Volokongan's got damage, I think, on the right side end plate as well. So that is him now going to be dropping down the field. Joe Murphy leads the way, Enzo 2nd, Jerry Van Bussel 3rd. But the one place you do not want to be in this race is P1.
One place you don't want to be at the moment is in P12 or P14, because Fede is absolutely on ice at the moment. I think he's fallen off a cliff. Have these hard tyres, they're not going to go the distance. Will they pop at any point is the next question. He's going to try and hang it out if he can to try and stay at least in the scraps of points. 15th place is the minimum position you need in WOR Legacy to get a point in this championship. As we just go on board at the moment with Tony Riesel, trying to close down the gap. It was 1.8 at the end of the last lap. It's 1.5 as he comes around the final corner, so he is gaining, but he's not gaining as fast as perhaps he wants to. But will he be at least on chance of a podium? That is the question.
Yeah, potentially so. At this moment in time, if you're a betting man, like I am sometimes, I think I don't know who's the quicker now, because the ERS has just changed. Enzo did have more than Joe Murphy. Now, Enzo still has more than Joe Murphy, but it's about 8% more. Jerry Van Bussel there in 3rd, Tony Riesel there in 4th. Tony Riesel is not gaining on the back of the front 3. Rens Thomason, by the way, has just been overtaken by Mubarak, who's making eye-catching progress through the field. The Swiss man now looking to try and get the move done. Maybe on the back of Jeslar before the end of the race. Whether or not he can catch P5 between now and then is a different thing. Joe Murphy, though, leading the way from Enzo in 2nd. Jerry Van Bussel there in 3rd. Mubarak, by the way, is on the back of Jeslar. Completely forgot that he was 2 tenths behind him, going towards turn number 3. As now he comes in towards turn number 4. Mubarak is all over the back of Jeslar. Shooting this move is going to get done this lap.
Yeah, while this is all happening, Jerry Van Bussel is actually gaining time on Tony Riesel at the moment. Gap was 1.5. It's now back up to around about 1.7. It's fallen a couple of tenths over this sector. So at the moment, the medium tyre doesn't look as fast as perhaps these old hard tyres are holding up to be at the moment. So fair play to Joe Murphy, Enzo, and Joe Van Bussel on their holding on their own accord. Once again, apologies, it says safety car on the top left-hand side. That is a bug over on Xbox at the moment. I know PlayStation don't have this, but on Xbox, you do have that safety car tag appear in the top left-hand corner until there's a yellow flag to replace it. So yeah, very peculiar, but that is the situation. They are under full green racing conditions at the moment. Joe Van Bussel in third place. Gap now 1.1. He's lost a bucket of time versus the likes of Tony Reich. And there's the yellow flag that we were waiting for, and that's unfortunately for Sam, who's binned it just before the left-hander are going onto the main straight. But Tony Reich now in fact, he's lost a couple of tenths in losing a bucket time because the three of them are going 3 wide into turn 1 up front at the moment as Joe Van Bussel now takes the lead of this race side by side. Joe Murphy and Enzo will go, but they just hold on. Joe Murphy now back into second place. They're swapping positions. They're exchanging information. They're exchanging insurance details, Facebook accounts, and everything up there at the moment.
And now I'd be very concerned because Enzo's got right side end plate damage. I've just seen this right now. Enzo's got right side end plate damage on that car. Coming to the left-hand of turn number 3. Not sure where he might have picked that up. Maybe through turn 15 is where I'm thinking. Whether or not that was induced earlier on in the race is a different thing. Enzo, though, has got right side end plate damage, but he is sticking with the front two of Joe Van Bussel and Joe Murphy. He's doing a fantastic job, but now they begin to pull away. This is where it really hurts now for Enzo. This middle sector is where it really hurts for him, especially coming through the castle section where you oversteer and understeer like your heart's content. Tony Reich, all of a sudden, is now back in contention of this race win. He's there in fourth, catching onto the back of Enzo, who is very slow coming out of turn number 12. It's advantage now, Joe Van Bussel and Joe Murphy. But is it advantage Joe Van Bussel and Joe Murphy? Because right now, the place you want to be in right now is where Enzo is in P3, even though he's got damage. 78% of ERS on the car. Joe Murphy flickered it coming over the apex there. Tony Reich behind has got 27. He might not factor in this race. It's the front four to fight it out. Joe Van Bussel, Joe Murphy, Enzo and Tony Reich, 2 Frenchmen, 1 fake Venezuelan, fake Jordanian, fake Irishman, whatever you like to call them, and 1 Dutchman, former PSL PSF1 champion, about to go out at final lap of the race. Jota, take it away.
Here we go then on the final lap of this race. Is Joe Murphy going to be able to get closer and closer and closer and closer? He'll certainly look for it down the inside. They're going to go 3 wide potentially. Remember, Enzo's got that front wing damage. He goes down the inside line. They collide and they're both off of the track. And that's allowed Joe Van Bussel through. Oh, it's Enzo straight in the wall. And that is him out of the race. And TTM's race has gone to complete tatters with Mubarak only in P5. Joe Murphy is still in P2. But the gap is nearly over a second versus Joe Van Bussel, and suddenly CPI's race has come alive. Tony Reich on the medium tyre will be happy to take P2 right out of the hands of the Kick Sauber if he wants to do so. But the question is, will the hard tyres be able to hold on versus those mediums? Mubarak is trying to hold off from a real attack at the moment from the ET8 boys in 6th and 7th. They've managed their race really well of ET8, and I think they'll be disappointed with 6th and 7th in the end. But unfortunately, the safety cars have come at just the wrong time for the likes of the Aston Martins. Jeslar is holding on for dear life on these hard tyres, but their question is will they have all of the traction, the ERS, the management of the engine to go down that main straight for the final time on this 26th lap? Joe Van Bussel is holding on, but Joe Murphy is getting closer and closer. He ended up losing out on the race victory in the sprint race to TTM's Enzo. Enzo crashed out of this race at turn 1 on the 26th lap, but he's getting closer and closer. He's gonna get his reprieve, we think, as he gets even closer. DRS is available down here. Joe Van Bussel has been very straight. He's been very powerful on the straight as Joe Van Bussel, and that might just carry him all the way to the checkered flag of this race as CPI take the win with Joe Van Bussel as he gets closer and closer, overtaking on the finishing line. Mubarak gets 4th in the end, just off of the likes of Jeslar, 33 thousandths, Rens Thomason, 20 thousandths from Matteo, 0.160 seconds. Joe Murphy immediately leaves the session, I believe in frustration that he didn't get that race victory. It's taken from his hands once again. Joe Van Bussel wins the Azerbaijan Grand Prix.
And Jerry Van Bussel saved 10% more VRS than Joe Murphy. That's what it came down to right at the end of the race. Joe Murphy in the end tried his absolute utmost. He was absolutely honest right up until we got to the start-finish line. And right up until Joe Van Bussel took that race win. He was absolutely on it right up until then. But it's his failure. It's his DRS. The ERS conserving that he didn't do coming through turn 16. And in the end, Joe Murphy has not learned from that sprint race in the end. He didn't learn his mistake from leading the race. He's now learned another mistake. Don't have less ERS than the man in front of you, because the man in front of you will pull away down the straight, down in towards the start-finish line. But in the end, it is the McLaren, Jeroen Bussell, P2 last week in Imola, P1 tonight for CPI here in Azerbaijan.
Over 150 are tuning in to see this man on the top step of the podium. He carried his own, to be fair, and the McLarens were so rapid on the straight, and that has just bought them all of the time and energy they need to take the top step of the podium. It's a fair play effort from Jeroen Bussell. Mubarak getting a solid P4 in the end as well after all of that, all of the treachery, all of the collisions and everything. Managing to get into the top 5 of this race is an absolute shocker, to say the least. Please ignore P2. That one goes to Joe Murphy, of course, who left the session in frustration, a rage quit. He finished in second from Tony Rees, from Mubarak, then Jeslar, Rens Thomason, Matteo, Ogwin, Volakongan, Boyalulu rounding out the top 10. Kiki managing to get good points as well. GT10, they needed that from Samuel Barker, from Tales, Dan, Fede, Sam rounding out the top 15 from Joe Murphy in the end, only just managing to get 15th. Of course, he was in second in the end from Enzo, from Jordan, from Finley, who all DNF'd, and as well as Oscar, of course, who retired very early on in this race. What a mess of a race that was in the end. You've got to say that was, in the end, just a bit of a race to try and understand what's going on and the ramifications of that. Yes, BRT have got the points, but CPI and, again, the people in third and fourth are closing down the gap, and Team Shazoo have got to look over their shoulders here, because they may not even be runners-up anymore.
Yeah, definitely so. Joe Murphy, in the end, picking up that P2. Jeroen Bussell, though, absolutely deserved that race win. He took that race by the scruff of the neck, on a lap of the rise, just dragged out enough of ERS towards the line. In the end, it's his victory, but it's what could have it been for Joe Murphy in both races? What could have it been for BRT in both races as well? He ended up losing the sprint by being in P1 and staying there right up until the line, and then ends up overtaking him down to the start-finish line, down the straight in the sprint. And in the feature, he was in completely the opposite position. He was there, running down the straight, in towards turn number 1, final lap of the race, behind Jeroen Bussell, and in the end, somehow, what I said, I think he's got this, definitely has come back to bite me on the backside, that is for sure. But in the end, he didn't have enough ERS. He had 10% less than Jeroen Bussell had. Jeroen Bussell dragged out that gap. And in the end, that's why he deserved the race win. CPI, at the moment, the team in form.
Team certainly in form at the moment. It's the bottom line is that the drivers went out of their way to really show the potential effort that is out there, and I've got to give them some serious credit, because they really did manage the race. And you know what, when it comes to how they set the car up as well, that McLaren was so rapid on a straight, so extra ERS, less drag, and has just led Jeroen Bussell to, even though he's in P1, to just win the race. He took the opportunity of taking the race lead on the 25th lap, and then when the 26th lap came along, there was nothing to worry about. So fair play to them and to CPI. I mean, that's the bottom line of it, James. You know, the track is now, and the competition continues to close down, and you know, I don't really know what to expect, because we've got the Netherlands next week, and that's going to be a bit of a mixed bag.
It is going to be a bit of a mixed bag. Zandvoort is normally a good track, though, for racing on this game cycle, so it is going to be very interesting to see how drivers fare, how strong Rens Thomason, for example, is around there, because I know he's won around there before in other races and in other leagues. I'm just trying to get up the updated standings. Hopefully I can do this now.
We'll wait on you getting all of those results in, and fingers crossed they will have been populated by them. But that gives us an opportunity to very quickly look at the calendar, mentioning of which we are at the Netherlands, as we said, next week. Then we have the Christmas break, where everyone can relax. You know, what is the words? Eat, drink, and be messy. I think it is, isn't it? But the bottom line is I know it's merry but messy. What's that? Well, I think that's two Ronnies actually. Now I'm thinking about it. Anyway, the bottom line is the Netherlands will be a race of high attrition. We are expecting that to be a race of high attrition. Then they've got the Christmas break before we head over to Brazil for Sao Paulo. You know, that Christmas break, I think, is desperately needed at the moment. The drivers are looking tired.
The drivers are looking tired. The commentators are even looking tired, I think, after this race. That is for sure. It is a very long season here in WOR Legacy Division. We have got one more race, as I say, until that Christmas break. I think one more race, haven't we? We have.
Yeah, we've got the Netherlands ahead of the Christmas break, and then we've got Sao Paulo, Miami, which is a sprint, Las Vegas, Mexico, Canada, which is a sprint, and then Texas. And that will take us all the way through February, and then through into what will be a really intense season, the fourth quarter of the season, through Japan, Hungary, Britain as a sprint race, then Austria, Italy, and Belgium. So as of next week, we are officially halfway through the season, and that will give us a good idea of what to expect, which I think shows close proximity.
It does show close proximity. Speaking of close proximity, do you want to know the updated standings?
Yeah, go on then, why not?
BRT out on top, 69 points clear.
Nice.
There's a joke in there somewhere, I'm sure. BRT, 424 points to their name. CPI are now in second with 355 points. They are 2 points clear of Team Shazoo in third on 353. E-Tail are in fourth on 339. That does include, by the way, BRT's second place finish. So all of these standings will be updated as they are. E-Tail is in fourth on 339, as I say. TTM fifth on 279. TRT now in sixth ahead of TF10, 189 to 185, respectively, in sixth and seventh. I just need to scroll down. And FRT are in eighth on 132. NVR somehow still in ninth on 76. EVE in 10th on 68 after double DNF, of course, they're in the feature race. And then GT10 11th on 40 points. They, of course, both teams will, of course, overtake NVR before the end of the season. But BRT, 69 points clear going into the Netherlands next week. It is a track that they're weak at sometimes within team events. And I think, personally, you'll see Team Shazoo and E-Tail come and fight back.
That may be the factor, and that may be sort of consideration for in there. So you make that point there, and that shows how closely compact this championship is. The championship defenders, Team Shazoo, are completely falling off a cliff. This has not been the best game cycle for them, and halfway through this season, you have to say they are going to be backmarkers for this championship, surely.
You'd imagine so. Yeah, I mean, there's halfway to go, really, in the season, and honestly, it's going to be one of those races and one of these seasons where it's going to be very long-winded. We're going to see multiple drivers, I'm sure, change within the break. And hopefully we get to see GT10 and EVE right towards the front end of the field in the second half of the season. As Murray Walker once said, anything can happen in Formula 1. It usually does. And as I like to say with my saying, anything can happen in sim racing, and it usually does. So, there we are.
If you want to have a quick look at the standings, they are available in the relevant Discord channels. I'm sure that Luke will be posting it in the chat as well. But there is what it looks like at the moment, and rightfully pointed out, 69 points separating CPI from BRT. Nice. With 71 points between Shazoo and BRT. ETA 85, TTM 145. Gaps 424, 355, 353, 339, 279. I'll tell you what, the biggest shock for me is TRT. They've been sort of abusing the back of the standings, really, haven't they? They've not really been in there. They've got the one podium back in Qatar, but the bottom line is they're still in sixth place, 235 points behind the lead, but closing up the gap between them and the likes of TTM. But the fact is that those back markers are still earning the points, and big shout out to FRT as well. Another points finish for them puts them in eighth place in front of EVE, and what a shocker for EVE. They've been able to have the pace and gain points, but a double DNF, and look at that, only 68 points to their name.
68 points to their name, and what could have been one of their strongest results of the whole season. And they fell by the wayside. They both double DNF'd in that race. In the end, they'll go and watch back, they'll do a review and be like, yeah, that shouldn't have happened. Jordan shouldn't have crashed it, coming out through turn number one. The damn wall on the right-hand side, I think, costing them potentially a very good point all there. But in the end, EV just need to focus on the future. They need to focus on the Netherlands. I know from other team events that they're very strong around there as well. So it is going to be rather intriguing to see how they get on, of course, out on track, and whether or not the bottom half of the teams can steal points from the top half of the teams and make it closer. BRT, were 52 points clear going into tonight. They're now ending up 69 points clear going into next week.
Well, and a big shout out as well to GT10 as well. That's their a really good finish for both of their drivers, 10th and 11th. It doesn't match their best performance. They did manage to get an 8th place both in Saudi Arabia on their debut and in Spain. So, but it is a good points finish, a good points haul with 10th and 11th for GT10, now up to 40 points themselves. What a cracker of a race. What a bit of a mess of a race. And we've got to expect another mess of a race in the Netherlands next week. It'll be an absolute cracker. Hopefully you can join us. It's for myself and the rest of the team here. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye-bye for now.